Hey everybody, welcome to the Sunday show here on the line. My name's Matt. I'm here with Owen. We're ready to take your calls. We are ready to believe you, as long as you come with a, evidence-based argument or something else. This is one of the many call-in shows here on the Line Network. This one primarily focuses on religious claims. And so if you believe in a God or some version of a God or something supernatural that we don't accept, and you think you have a good reason for us to believe it, call in and let us know. 720-619-2288, or there's a web link down in the description. Owen, how are you?
Doing well. Glad to be here. Yeah, nothing too crazy going on with me. What about you?
Well, Arden and I are fostering a dog that we've had for like right at 24 hours or so. And we're going to foster her for a week, and if it goes well and she gets along with the cat and all the other animals, then she'll be our new dog. But
That's exciting. I've never had a dog really long term. I've had some in and out of my house, but I have had kids, and I'm having a new kid. I don't know if you heard about this. My wife is pregnant. Did you hear?
Yay!
Yeah.
I had heard, but I didn't know it was for public discussion, so I wasn't going to prompt you.
It's officially public. It's a girl, so pretty exciting stuff.
Yay!
Yeah.
Well, see, this is why I don't do shows with Owen very often, because I get a new dog, he's going to get a new human. I mean, you just got to one-up me every time.
Right.
Oh, I just realized I didn't even log into the call-in studio, which would be good so that I could see. Hey, there are no calls yet. So I know one of the things is we've been starting an hour early. We've been making some tech changes as well. It is time. If you are here, if you're just out of Sunday services, or you skipped Sunday services, or you don't ever go to Sunday services, or you have your thoughts on God that you want to demonstrate, let me warn you though. Unlike Justin and Ian and a bunch of others, my patience for Phil Bros or Philo Bros or Philo Bros or whatever isn't the same as theirs. I watched a show with Justin and Ian last night, and they were having a lot of fun with it, and they let people go on way longer than I'm going to, because to me, if we start the call and your thing is, I'd like to present an argument for the existence of God, and I say, okay, go ahead, and you do the for every X there is something, and then there's something, blah, 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 blah. Which premise do you reject? Well, I reject the premise that you're an honest interlocutor. That's the first premise that I reject, because we're genuinely here. If you have a good reason to believe in God, we'd like to know. And if it's not a good reason, we'd like to explain why we don't agree. This is about, good discussions and everything else. And what we find is that in most of those Phil Bros that they were engaging with, it's like they're, Googling and using ChatGPT, and half of them can't even pronounce the philosophical topics that they're talking about. There was a caller yesterday that was calling in and wanted to go off about, let me get your thoughts on modal logic, but didn't pronounce it correctly. It was absolutely hilarious. And so that there's a game that a lot of them are evidently playing, which is, okay, we're going to take the call, we're going to let you ramble, we're going to let you avoid questions over and over again. And they do and say the same thing. Okay, I've explained it to you, but you're not tracking. Let me try again. When they haven't explained a thing, if you genuinely want to explain something, you have the style associated more closely with teaching. There's a reason why I will give really long answers, and it's because I'm trying to explain concepts that some people may find difficult. So other people may find them just, reflexively, instinctively easy. But if you care about making sure that the other person actually understands what you're saying and that you're trying to find the errors, rather than I'm going to spew out a bunch of stuff and try for a gotcha, you speak differently. And while, if you're one of the Phil bros and you want to call in and see if you can catch me out, I don't know what the point is. It's another mistake that they make where they're calling in to say, aha, can I present a logical argument as a gotcha to show that you don't know as much as you think you do? I'm not claiming to know any of it, but I do know this. If you spit out an argument and your first statement is, which premise do you reject? Well, first of all, it's not up to us to reject or point out a flaw in a premise. It's up to you to demonstrate that the premises are true or should be accepted. So even after presenting your argument, if there's a premise that we are not convinced of, we can say that. And now the burden of proof is still on you to demonstrate that premise. Anyway, I probably just short-circuited all the Phil Bro stuff so that they don't even bother calling today. And so maybe we'll be lucky today, and maybe we will get nothing but sincere believers who want to actually say, hey, I think you guys have missed this, or hey, here's the reason I believe, and I don't understand how you guys can reject this. Here's the evidence that I rely on. Here's what's going on. But we live in I live in the United States of America, which is an absolute train wreck of a hot mess right now, with fascist bootlicking thugs running around shooting people in the face, and 30% of the population can't watch a video and determine whether or not the shooting was bad when it absolutely was. She was absolutely murdered by ICE, and anybody who says different should call me on Wednesday when I'm doing the hang up, because today's show is more about religion, supernatural stuff. And I'd love to know, if you're someone who describes yourself as spiritual but not religious, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to you? Because we get different answers from different people all the time. I genuinely, no bullshit, do not understand. Somebody says, "Oh, I'm spiritual." Okay. There's something in my head that kind of almost grasps what you're talking about, but I don't know. And every time I ask somebody, I don't know, Owen, have you gotten a good answer to what people mean when they say they're spiritual but not religious?
I'll tell you what my answer was. I was one of those people at one point. My answer was, I think organized religion was absolutely terrible, but I still believed in God.
Aha.
So I was still theist. I was still Christian. I was just disgusted by organized religion. Although, people mean different things, of course. So I haven't gotten a straight answer out of people because it conflicts with literally everything that they say after that. So
you should have a podcast. It's a crime that you don't have a podcast called Morganized Religion.
That's good. I like that.
All right. We've started to queue up some callers here. If you're ready, let's get started and see if we can't spend a couple hours having good conversations with people. We're going to start with Tim in New York. Tim's a deist who has called 22 previous times and says there is no constitutional right to an immigration hearing. So what? I don't even know why you're calling about this, Tim.
Well, you previously clowned me for quote unquote for saying there you kept bringing up due process and saying I wasn't honoring people's due process.
Yes.
But what due process are you actually talking about?
I'm talking about the due process that every person is guaranteed by the Constitution, that they have to, the government has to follow a procedure to confirm that you are who they think you are, you have done what they think you've done, that there's a step-by-step process. You can't just snatch someone up and deport them. You can't just snatch someone up and deny them a right to an attorney, a right to an attorney. That's due process. That has nothing to do with immigration hearing. At no point have I said that anybody is guaranteed an immigration hearing. So you called back because I chastised you for not understanding due process, and now you're just showing that you still don't understand due process or what the topic even was. So
And
I don't know what to do.
And let me ask
So
you
what do
something. Do you realize that people get the wrong guy sometimes, right? I had a cousin who was arrested and he gave a fake name because he already had a felony and he was going to go to prison for a lot longer if they had the real name. And they eventually figured that out through the process of the court system, through due process. You understand why that's important, right? The Constitution doesn't say anything about immigration in that context, but it does say we have a right to due process. And if anything is being done with somebody at all, they need due process for that. If the court system or the legal system or the government is handling somebody's case at all, they deserve due process. In fact, they're entitled to it, right?
Okay, that makes sense, but the Constitution says specific things about rights in when you're a criminal accused. They make it. I have to look up the specific amendment, but you have a right to a jury trial. You don't have any specific right like that when it comes to immigration.
We're not. No. I'm sorry. Immigration is irrelevant. The due process is what the government has to do before they can take action against any person. And all persons born or naturalized or subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, but all persons have a right to, the legal process before they can take action against you.
That's fine, but you have to define due process in the specific instance. You don't.
No,
you're just throwing it out as a phrase.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
You do not know. You can't have people walking around, whether they are government officials or not, snatching people up and deporting them without going through the court system to show that they have the right person, that this person is here wrongly, that they need to be deported, and then doing it. That is what due process is. You have to go step by step to show that you have this person is who you claim they are, this person has done what you claim they have done or are here illegally. And that's why the due process exists, because throughout this, we have deported American citizens.
So
how do you tell?
What is
so hang on, Tim.
Okay.
There's a guy standing out on the street corner and he doesn't speak English. Is he a citizen or not?
If we pick him up, the administrators, the police that pick him up, do record search. They
That's not what I asked you. That's not what I asked you. That's not what I asked you.
Okay. How can we tell?
There's a guy standing on the corner. He doesn't speak English. Is he a citizen or not?
It seems unlikely, but I mean, you'd have to check.
Okay.
It seems unlikely.
That's because you're a dipshit, Tim. The question was, is he a citizen or not? And the only correct answer to that, given what I've told you, is I don't know. That's the answer I was going for. I was trying to gradually lead you up to this so that you would have your aha moment and understand due process. So there's a guy standing out here, doesn't speak English, isn't responding, and the police come up, or ICE, let's just say it's ICE, and ICE comes up and they say, you're here illegally, we're going to deport you. How do we tell, how do we know whether they're correct, whether that person is a citizen, whether they're here legally or not? What is the process we would use to confirm that they are correct in who they are deporting?
You might have a Spanish-speaking cop on hand to ask them, do you have papers? I mean, that's not.
Oh, I'm sorry, but you don't get to ask people for papers. And whether or not you have a Spanish-speaking cop is irrelevant. The question is, how do you tell if that person is legally allowed to be deported?
How do you tell if you can't find Matt? would you be able to easily point to your documentation and where you were born? Would it be easy for you? Like, you want to make this so detached from reality. In this
I'm
situation
sorry.
that this man lives
I'm sorry,
in the
Tim.
United States
I'm
his
sorry,
whole
Tim.
life,
I'm
and
sorry,
he can't
Tim.
find,
I'm sorry,
he
Tim.
knows nothing.
I'm sorry, Tim. I'm sorry that you're stupid, Tim. But whether or not I can point to my birth certificate or anything else or show that I'm a citizen.
Why can't he, Matt? Why can't he, Matt?
I'm sorry, Tim, but whether I can do it is irrelevant to what the process should be. I'm sorry that asking you how to tell the difference between someone who can be deported and who can't be deported is so fucking confusing that your brain has shut down so that you just want to ask, can I do it? This is why we need due process, because people like you don't understand and would be willing to deport people. I'm sorry, I'm still fucking talking. People like you don't understand the basics of the law and what people are authorized to do. If you don't have a way, due process is that procedure that confirms
what is that
this
procedure?
person. I'm still fucking talking, Tim. That due process is the procedure that allows us to be justified in confirming who gets to say and who gets to go. Why are you asking me questions about my birth certificate?
So you're asking about some kind of probable cause.
Tim, if ICE
about.
walks up to someone and says, we're deporting you, what is the process to confirm that what they've done is legal?
What if they've gone through an administrative procedure and they've determined this person's here illegally? So they pick them up and then they said, we're deporting you. We know you're here illegally. We've looked into this guy. We know he's illegal.
That's
basically, all they need to do.
Tim, basically you're describing due process while ignoring it. You're saying maybe they went and did what they needed to do to show that it, yes. Did they show it before a court of law? Did they get a warrant? Did this person get a trial? Did they get any sort of...
You don't need to do that. They don't need
yes,
to
they
give
do.
them a trial.
Yes, they do, Tim.
There's no
yes,
right
they
to
do.
a trial.
Yes, they do, Tim.
They don't have
yes,
a right to a trial.
Do,
no, they
Tim.
don't.
Yes, they do, Tim. Yes, they do. That's what the Constitution says. I'm sorry that you don't like the Constitution. I'm sorry that you're too stupid. When they pick you up, how are you going to show that you're a citizen?
Tell me where it says it.
Yes, all right.
In the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, among others. But
yes, it said the Constitution says we have a right to. Hang on, brother. Please hold on. All right. Look, I'm muting you for a second. I was just going to say it says we have a right to due process, and the court system has determined that that applies to immigration hearings as well. Either way, we should have a right to due process, even if it didn't say that we have a right to due process, which it does. We should. You understand why we should, right? That's what we've been walking you through this entire time. All right, I'm unmuting you now. Just want to confirm what I said before. It says we have a right to due process, and the courts have determined that applies to immigration. All right, you're unmuted.
Yes. We have a right to due process. That's whatever process is due in the specific situation, but that differs based on what it is.
No, due process has a specific definition, okay? We know what due process is.
What does it say, Tim? Tim, what does it say in the Fifth Amendment about due process?
The Fifth Amendment specifically, you tell me what it says specifically. You know.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you knew what you were talking about. It says no person.
I don't know it verbatim.
You don't know what you're talking about. And if you keep talking, you're not going to learn. Are you interested in learning, or are you just here to be a whiny little bitch who doesn't know anything?
Criminal cases, Matt. That's in criminal cases.
No,
This amendment is for criminal cases.
I'm sorry. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process, which means you don't get to detain people, you don't get to arrest people, you don't get to put them on trial without going through the due process to show that you have the right person and you have probable cause and all these other things.
For a capital crime.
No.
God, dude.
You don't get to add stuff. You don't get to add stuff to the law just because you like it. It's no person. How do you tell if you're going to pick somebody up and say this person should not be here? How do you tell that you have the right person and that they shouldn't be here?
You know they arrest people before they get to a grand jury, right?
I'm sorry, Tim, but we're not talking about arrests or grand jury. If you're out on the street and ICE comes and scoops you up and drives you away and says they're deporting you, how are you going to react?
How am I going to react? I mean, obviously, I would be distraught about that, but I would try to tell them, listen, I was born at X hospital. I have on file my birth certificate downtown.
Tim, they don't care.
You can go check this stuff.
Tim,
you're a liar.
We don't care. We don't care what you say.
You're a liar.
We don't care what you say. We don't care what you say. We already know you're the guy. We already know, Tim. We already know you're the guy we want to deport. We don't care what you say about where you were born, and we're not required to investigate or treat you with any respect or even look into your statements, because that would be due process, dipshit.
Well, let me ask you.
Apparently, I looked up a case governing this. Have some full review. So don't you think a meaningful review would be, oh, we looked up where this person was born? I mean, do you think these cops are completely oblivious to?
Let me ask
you. Let me ask you, totally
Tim.
Evil?
Yes.
You think the cops? The police are totally evil. They won't even look it up if the guy says he was.
They're not police, dumbass. It's ICE. These are Proud Boys that are given a $50,000 bonus to come put women and kids in zip ties. Go ahead. Sorry. Owen.
Right. And let me ask you this, Tim. Let's say we're under a Kamala Harris administration. She wins in 2028 or whatever. And they've decided they're going to start rounding up Trump supporters and putting them in prison. And they don't deserve due process because this isn't a criminal matter. It's a civil matter. Do you feel that that's fair? Do you think it's a good idea to erase or erode due process?
I'll unmute.
So what do you think this is like
I'm sorry,
detaining?
Tim. I'm sorry, Tim. Owen just asked you a question. What was the question?
Okay.
Is it a good idea to erode due process when it can be used against you in, as little as 4 years or whatever? Is it a good idea? Do you really not want due process protections for literally every person, as the Constitution says?
Hold on. They do have due process.
Who's they? I'm talking about you. Do you want due process protections?
I never said I'm against due process, but your interpretation of what due process is in immigration is wrong.
How do you show that someone is an immigrant without due process?
They get due process. They
stop.
Administrative.
All right, Tim. The problem here, you're not fucking paying attention, is they're not getting due process. They are violating the procedures. They are running around and scooping people up without showing who they have scooped up. Why? They are scooping up American citizens in the fray. They say they're going after criminals, but they're not. And all you got to do is look at the case with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was under specific court order not to be deported to the country that they deported him to. That's not just a violation of his due process rights. That's a violation of a direct fucking order from the court. These motherfuckers are shooting people in the face. They are attacking people on their front porch for filming them. They are running around with masks. Stop licking boots. Go the fuck away, Tim. We're going to talk to some people about God because you're too stupid to engage with, because you think that due process is going on while you don't know what due process is. Well, I never said I was opposed to due process. You're saying they don't get an immigration hearing. Nobody said anything about an immigration hearing. I didn't. Nobody else did. What we said is, if you're going to say, hey, we're going to put you in prison. Hey, we're going to deport you. Hey, we're going to take some legal action against you. You have the requirement to show that you have the right person and you are following the procedures to make sure that before they are incarcerated, before they are deprived of life, liberty, or property, that you have taken all of the required steps. You know how that never happens? That never happens with masked men scooping people up and skipping the process. That's not how any of this works. All right, let's go on and talk about God, because that's a much better topic. Yep,
Hola,
there we
¿cómo
go.
estás? My name
Jose's
is
calling from
Jose.
Arizona. Jose's calling with an argument for the existence of the Christian God. Hey, Jose, thank you so much for calling. How are you?
No problemo. So, one of the reasons I think God is because ICE was chasing after me, and I prayed to God for them to stop chasing me. I
Okay.
prayed
You're
for
not
God to give me a
serious. You're
chance.
not serious. You're not serious. Why are you doing this?
No, I'm being very serious.
I don't believe you.
Okay, well,
I
I'm
think
being serious.
so. No, Jose. I doubt Jose is actually your name. It says you've been auto screened 3 times today, but I don't see your number coming up before. So you said ICE was coming after you, and you prayed to God, and that's why you believe in God. When did this happen?
2 months ago,
2 months ago. So prior to 2 months ago, you didn't believe in a God?
I've always believed in God, but
Oh, I'm
2 months
sorry.
ago I
But
prayed.
I'm sorry. If you always believed in God, that's good, because I was going to ask, why did you pray to God if you didn't believe in God? But if ICE was after you, and you prayed to God, what happened to convince you that God was real if you already believed in God? Liar.
They stopped chasing me.
How do you know they stopped chasing you?
Because they all got in their little unmarked SUV and they drove off.
Yeah. Just like your brain and your integrity. Here I thought we were actually going to be getting, and
I know, having a rough time of it, huh?
this is really awful. Um, I I'm going to have to keep claiming victory, because um, there are no theists calling in to make an honest presentation of why they believe. It just doesn't happen. Um, Getting an honest theist to call in is like getting due process for someone who's doesn't speak very good English. Anybody who, like right off the bat, when I asked Tim, the racist piece of shit, if somebody standing out there doesn't speak English, are they a citizen? His immediate thing was probably not. I mean, what's your justification for that? And even if you were right, even if that was the most probable explanation, that doesn't mean that you then get to act as if they aren't. And by the way, whether or not they are a citizen, they are still afforded due process. And so Tim completely missed the fact that, oh, it doesn't matter whether they're a citizen or not, which is the right answer.
I just don't understand why anybody would want to erode that right. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. Do they not think it will be used against them in the future? I'm not advocating for rounding anybody up, obviously, ever, but you never know what kind of administration will come next, obviously. In our experience, it went badly, right?
Yeah, it is. So there's a lot of, and what Owen's talking about in a little bit more of a political sense, there are rights and stuff that we're afforded, and there are things that we can do. But just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean you should do. So, for example, the nuclear option, with regard to,
The Senate.
yeah, um, there are tools that they don't want to use because they recognize they're probably not going to be in power forever. And if we do this, the other people are going to do this. We now live in a country where the people in control are absolutely, undeniably acting as if they are never going to not be in power. They are knocking down wings of the White House and building stuff as if, they're going to be president eternal and get to hang out there. They are shutting down government agencies. They are installing and only supporting the bootlicking sycophants that will do whatever they say. And now they are actually actively making excuses for a murder we all saw. Like, and by the way, they are making fake audio and video. There are fake pictures to show the car in a different position than it actually was. There are videos that have been faked to have the audio for the gunfire diminished or played at different times. Um, it's difficult enough to, can you imagine? Like, we now have body cams and cell phones and people are recording stuff everywhere. And we only know what happened because I saw it myself from multiple angles. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, all we would have heard was the official narrative, which is someone tried to run over a law enforcement officer with their car and they were shot and killed. And that would have been the absolute end of the story. And instead, we now live in a world where the good Christians don't defend their views, don't defend their religion, and they're the ones that are hateful. Like, I saw a post on a Christian Facebook forum about what do you hate about the country right now? And it was a parade of, I hate the liberals, the godless commie liberals, the liberal liberals, the queer liberals, the blah, blah, blah liberals, the liberal. It's just hate, 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 hate. Now, somebody could say, but yes, the left's the same way. What do you hate? You hate, MAGA. Okay. It's funny, though, that what they hate the liberals for is wanting a world where everybody has rights, where everybody can make a decent living, where everybody has access to healthcare and food, where people are treated decently, where due process is still in existence and something we still are concerned about. That's the things that they hate. And they hate it because the right has successfully marketed that, ooh, the illegals are coming to take your job. They're taking your job. They're taking your money. They're taking your dogs. They're eating your cats. They're coming for what's yours. And that reactionary, oh, they're going to come for what's mine. I better stop them. They're the bad ones. Meanwhile, people, go look at the studies. We're opposed to Obamacare, but we're in favor of the Affordable Care Act. It's the same thing, called by two different names, but boy, when we put a black president's name on it, now you're opposed to it. Whereas when you just judge it based on what it actually is and not what it's called, you're in favor of it. You're in favor of due process right up until it means the people that you don't like because you're afraid of them might get to stay. This is the world we live in. Trump literally, so I guess I am going to make this political while we wait for some more callers to get in here. I shared a video earlier today because Trump literally said that China doesn't have wind power at all. You can't find it. You can't find it. They just don't have wind power. They've got this and this and this, but they just don't have wind power. But what they do is they manufacture windmills to sell them to suckers in Europe and the US. Except that is a complete lie. And the actual data, not only does China have wind power, but they have a larger share, 74% of their of all wind power usage is China. The United States has 5.9%, India has 5.1%, the rest of the world has 15%, China has 74%. Trump is literally lying, as always, about and presenting the exact opposite, the cartoonishly opposite claim of what reality is. And it flies. And people buy into it because people care more about their side than they do about what the actual truth is.
It's kind of wild to watch him lie so egregiously because most people, when they lie, they just twist the truth a little bit, They make it believable. His lies are not even a little bit believable. It's really, if I don't know what the word, like flamboyant, insane stuff that doesn't make any sense at all. Like windmills cause cancer. I don't understand where he came up with that or how, or like nuking a hurricane. He said he wanted to nuke the hurricane, and then the media just acted like there was some logical merit to it. I just don't understand.
Yeah.
Insane.
I don't. I wake up every day, seriously not believing the state of the world that I live in, and I spend so much of my days correcting the flood of misinformation that appears in my social media. And I spend my time correcting people in the atheist community, in the secular community, in the lefty community. Um, and it's a weird mix of here's some partial misinformation, or they let their frustration get to the point. Somebody made a post yesterday, or maybe this morning, I can't remember. I responded to it pretty early this morning, that said, now this is just speculation, but what if all of this was intended? What if that ICE agent intentionally shot them in order to rile people up so they would have an excuse to shoot them, and that this was actually a premeditated murder? And that's why when he's walking around, he's already unclipping the thing. And I'm like, just stop. This is already terrible without speculating about conspiracies. And then every time you utter a conspiracy that you cannot justify, you give the other side ammunition to say that you have some derangement syndrome. See, you're just reacting, you're just emotional. All you lefty, liberal, emotional, blah, blah, blahs. And now they're like, oh, now they're out there looting and rioting, which is what they claimed. They claimed they had to send the National Guard to these and military to these towns because there were war zones rioting. No war zones, no rioting, nothing at all like that. The people who run these cities and states don't want the government there, but that doesn't matter. If they go in and they start riling things up, yes, that could be a plan. It probably is to some extent their plan of we're going to do it whether we're allowed to or not. It's easier to get forgiveness than permission. And when this pisses people off, then they'll be rioting, which we're already worried about. But to bring that up as if this one cop, not even a cop, this one law enforcement officer did this, it doesn't benefit anybody, and it doesn't do anything to foster or get us closer to truth. It's exhausting.
It is, but I believe that sooner rather than later, the other side's going to take power again, and everybody all the way up and down the chain is fucked. I believe that they are all fucked. They're not going to make it out of this without charges. You know, Trump is like 103, but he's got one foot in the grave, one on a banana peel, if you will. But Kristi Noem, Elon Musk, they're pretty young. They have a solid 40 years to go that they can spend in federal prison.
Yeah.
And I believe that they are either going to be on the run for the rest of their lives or going to end up in federal prison, in my opinion. I mean, as far as I know, I'm pretty sure Elon Musk already has a warrant for his arrest in Germany for meddling in their elections. He's not a very popular person worldwide. He's protected in America, but how long is that going to last? Not forever. It's not going to last forever.
I think we were talking yesterday about it's going to take 20 years from the time we start healing to go through essentially Nuremberg trials type stuff where because we have some things that are obvious violations of human rights here with regard to posse comitatus, with regard to due process, with regard to, citizens of the United States, but also just people here. And then you have the potential war crimes and violations of international law with regard to, capturing Maduro, bombing and supposed drug boats that couldn't possibly make it here, and stealing oil all over the place. And the thing is, they're not even trying to hide it. Like Trump literally just said the other day, the only thing that can stop him is his own morality, that he doesn't need international law. They don't care about international law. And if Trump's morality is the only thing that's stopping him from doing something, then nothing will stop him because he has no moral sense. All he has is, let me stay just above the bar so that there's enough people supporting me for doing right by them that they don't care what laws I've broken. And he essentially just killed a woman in Minnesota by proxy, just like he said he could do. Stand out on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and wouldn't lose a vote because MAGA are evil. They don't know it. They don't think they are. Everybody thinks they're making the world a better. Oh, we just want to get these criminals out of here. We just want to get these drug dealers out. Okay, then why did you pardon the guy? Pardon one drug dealer and capture another? Is it because the one you're capturing has access to oil? And by the way, is the number one supplier of oil to China? Is your opposition to windmills because you actually know that China is more reliant on that than they are on oil? Not that you can do anything. It's just weird. I don't know.
Completely agree. It's a mess. But there will come a time when we will see those trials. In Germany, there's something called Spruchhammer courts. It was basically Germany's way of dealing with not just... All right, Nuremberg was dealing with arch criminals. Spruchhammer courts were dealing with the everyday person. And... oh boy, we got a close up of Matt's face now. Awesome. I love it. We should do the rest of the show like this. Anyway, Spruchhammer courts was how they deal with everyday Nazis, and they categorized people from 1 to 5, whether they were, nominal party members, but they showed signs of opposition against the movement was number 1, I think. And then 5 was actually took part in crimes. And every single German had to go through the Spruchhammer courts. They worked kind of like town halls. They filled out questionnaires with like 40 questions on them and stuff like that. Anyway, I think we're going to see something like that. Nuremberg trials, maybe, but certainly Spruchhammer courts, in my opinion.
Sorry for the extreme close-up. My power strip on my desk that runs that camera reset, and the camera goes back to its default zoom.
Oh, that sucks. Okay. Yeah. No sweat. That's weird.
I didn't shave before the show, so I'm like extra scruffy and everything. Good for me. Good for me.
Right.
All right, here we go. We got some more callers lining up. Zach's calling from Texas. Zach's an atheist, pronouns he, him. Secular humanism and turning it into some kind of community-based practice. What's going on, Zach?
What's going on, guys?
Hey.
So yeah, I originally was I started off as an Orthodox Christian. I was part of and I was listening to some Christian speakers like Jordan Peterson, and I thought they had some good ideas. But then I listened to some of the atheist experience and some of your other debates, and I would consider myself an atheist at this point. But I feel like there is a lot of I feel like it is true that Christian a lot of Christian morals do inform like the basis of like our moral instinct as Western civilization. Would you agree with that?
No, and I also wouldn't agree with Jordan Peterson being Christian or having good ideas. So I'm way lost.
Okay.
What?
Okay. Well, I mean, I
agree. I agree that in the West, Christianity has had a massive influence on what people perceive with regard to morality. But if that's all you mean, then yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I remember in your talk I guess discussion with Jordan Peterson, he pointed out that there are societies where young men are raised to be barbarians, and there's rape and more murder, and it's not necessarily an instinct to protect the innocent and whatnot. And even though Christianity has obviously there's places in the world right now where homosexuals are being killed and whatnot, and heretics were burned and everything. I do feel like I don't know. I feel like we can agree that even though it hasn't been perfect, Christian values have informed moral instincts in Western civilization.
I'm sorry, you went back to have informed. I've already agreed. I just don't think that they've correctly informed. When your view is that
okay.
when your view is one where, like, for example, the Bible doesn't have equality between genders. The Bible doesn't have equality for LGBTQ people. None of those concepts exist. Those are things that we had to change. So what is a good moral principle from the Bible that we can't get without it?
Well, I mean, I don't think we can't get it without it. I'm just saying it has, like, for instance, not valuing, loving your neighbor as you love thyself, and not valuing,
But see, now you're cherry
else.
picking because certainly there is the love thy neighbor as thyself. But what does the Bible mean when it says neighbor? Does that mean anybody?
I mean, I would assume so.
You would assume so, but you would assume incorrectly. That is not what the passage is referring to. So there are people, your brother in Christ is fundamentally different than, Jesus didn't come for everybody, according to Jesus on some occasions. And meanwhile, the Old Testament has the Jews being God's chosen people, and you shall have your slaves from the heathen that surround you. And that you shall go in and you shall conquer these and you'll slaughter the Amalekites and all these people. It is a parade of let's kill everybody and take their shit because we're God's chosen people. And then when you get to Christianity, we're once again in basically a portal religion where you're the special one, you're the chosen one by God, and those people are your brothers, those people are your neighbors. That doesn't mean that you treat everybody that way at all. But even if it did, why would you go with a religious foundation that has both statements and both perspectives? Even if you were to think that it's promoting, hey, love thy neighbor as thyself, it's also promoting that there are some people that God prefers and some things that God is incredibly opposed to, and those people are not equal. Men aren't equal to women at any point.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, I mean, you mentioned in the discussion, you were like, we can, even if Christianity did in some ways inform our moral instincts, that doesn't mean we have to keep it as a faith. And I agree with that. But I think I see, like, I mean, obviously churches have been community centers for years, and it has, brought people together, and, like, but obviously and this is still obviously the case mostly in the South in some places, but obviously it's a problem because, obviously LGBT has not traditionally been an accepted group in church communities. So, but I see a lot of churches nowadays that are, like, in full support of LGBT. I personally,
is that because they're following the Bible or because they're abandoning the Bible?
I guess it's because they're abandoning the Bible.
And so if things got better when they abandoned the Bible, isn't that a case for abandoning it entirely?
Well, I mean, there are churches where there's, like, I mean, like, the church that I go to, quote unquote, I don't go to the Sunday worships, but, like, there are, like, would you go in front of those people and, like, want them to, like if they abandon their faith, like that, like, what, they're just, like, gonna take the cross down and just, like, make it a like I don't know, like, just make it a non-Christian community center?
Yes. Turn the entirety of Vatican City into a homeless shelter.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I guess that is definitely, like, a lofty goal. Like, that's not, like, something that's going to happen at the snap of a finger. But anyways, I'll get to the point now, which is, okay, yeah. So I agree that Christianity, like, there are still people that it amazes me that there are still people that think that homosexuality is a grave sin and like that, you know, but so I'm just saying, like, I feel like it is true, just like to get like for you to like maybe get like a younger the perspective of a younger person. I do feel like one thing that's true is that we are very fragmented. Well, I'm not insulting you. I do feel like we are very
what
fragmented.
makes you think I don't have perception of a younger person?
Well, because you're like what, 55?
Yes, and I do multiple shows every week, hearing from people. My partner's 30. I know plenty of people who are, but anyway, why do I give a fuck about what younger people think? Do they have better information?
Well,
do they have more accurate understanding?
Well, I mean, you can agree that like hearing from different perspectives, different people with different backgrounds, different age groups, like a diverse set of people is good. Hey, forget that I said hear from a younger person. I'm just saying it seems
ignore the ageism. Why do I need to hear from a diverse set of opinions? Why don't I just need to hear from whichever one's right?
Well, because different people with different because obviously, you know, the world is a complicated place, and by that means like different things happen in different places. Different age groups will have a different like you had a different experience
truths
growing up.
Zach, are there different truths, or is there just truth?
Well, I guess there's just truth.
Yeah, and all I care about is truth. And so all I really need to do is hear the case for truth. So what's the case that Christianity is true?
Okay, fine. I'm saying like the thing that I called to talk about was I just wanted to hear your opinion on. I feel like having community centers and maybe the Austin atheist
ACA.
community.
Talking about the ACA.
Oh yeah, the ACA. Maybe it does that to some degree, or I'm sure it does. But I feel like it would be good to have community centers around. Like, I feel like secular humanism is.
Yeah, there are a lot of community centers around atheism. For example, there's Unitarian Universalist churches. Those I haven't researched it. Someone can correct me, but to my understanding, those are pretty
atheist friendly.
Yeah, they're atheist friendly. You don't have to worship a god, believe in a god, or anything. You can go there, and I absolutely agree with you that visiting or that having a bigger community is something that we lose when we leave religion behind, and it's damaging to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we should absolutely be meeting up with others for sure. Yeah.
But
yeah,
you know why?
Yep.
Why that's difficult for non-religious groups? It's because they don't get the default tax exempt status, preferential treatment, and government support that religions get by default. They have to fight for those things because the system is unfairly rigged in favor of traditional organized religions, and they have unfair advantages that secular humanist organizations don't have by default, even though they should. And so while it'd be great if there were wonderful community centers, the reality is not only are we in a world where we are not giving the same advantages to the non-religious communities that we give to the religious communities. I'm sorry, I don't remember where I was going with that. It's a nice idea, I guess, but I don't know how you implement it in any way other than we are. When one side has a massive advantage consistently for millennia, if not centuries and decades, how do you change that? And so my concern is it true? Not how do we become like them? Because first of all, I'm not necessarily convinced that becoming like them is a good thing in the same way that other people seem to think it is.
I think community
Yeah, I
is
mean,
good
I don't know.
generally, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, so I'm just saying, like, okay, maybe you wouldn't agree with this, but it seems like as like belief in Christianity, like, lowers in the last maybe like 40 years in society on average. It seems like we are becoming, like, very fragmented, and, like, people have less
Oh,
community, and loneliness is.
okay. So, do you know the difference between correlation and causation?
Yeah.
So, you think that we're becoming less Christian and that the world's getting worse.
It's obviously that's not the only reason. If that is a reason,
How do you know
it's
it's
not the only
how do you
reason.
know it's a contributing reason?
I don't know that for sure.
Cool. Do you know it?
But
Do you
I
have any
can.
good reason to suspect that it's a contributing reason?
Well, I don't have like I don't have like I don't have like I can't point to like data, but I just see that I see a lot of loneliness and social anxiety and like fragmentation in my experience in life, just like, in
You
my
know,
with
in
my
those
experience, like,
17,
going
18
to.
years, whatever it is.
Look, I think that
Okay.
religion is good at building community, but even at its height, people have never um there's still a loneliness epidemic. You know, in Germany at the height of World War II, churches were everybody was a member of a church, everybody practically. 10,000 people paying tithes, but only 600 showing up to the church of Martin Niemöller, for example. So they may be a member of religion nominally, but the vast majority of people are either going to not care or not be involved in one way or another. And religiosity overall is damaging to society, horrifyingly damaging and bad for society, because it acts as a wall. Anytime we want to make progress anywhere, there's the church standing in the way. This is something that's existed throughout all of history. There's the church standing in the way. So it may contribute a
Ye-
little bit to ending a loneliness epidemic, maybe, possibly. Like, we don't even know that for sure. But with it will absolutely come horrifying, awful, evil stuff that the church perpetuates, and unchecked power. So I think if we want to fix the loneliness epidemic, we should find the actual cause.
Yeah.
For sure. And then look for a different way that doesn't come with absolute terrible, unchecked power and authority and ass backward ideas.
Like if I was
Well,
trying to list likely contributors to loneliness and change in community, I think higher than a decline in religiosity, much higher than that on my list of candidates would be the 24-hour news cycle, shoveling information in everybody's face constantly, internet access to every bit of information and even more potential misinformation, more and more hours spent scrolling McNuggets of 10-second clips and pretending that that's enough information for you to make a decision or have any understanding of it. I want it all right now. I want it all free. I don't need to go to a theater. I don't need to go out to eat. I don't need to interact with my community. I can do all of it at home. I don't even have to have a monitor. I can just get glasses that project things directly in front of me. Granted, that's less probable, but when it comes to like ending or not participating in religious stuff, yes, religiosity is on decline. that might also be caused as much or more by those online access, because you don't have to go to church. We have multiple churches here in Austin that have services you can attend virtually. And I'll guarantee you a good chunk of them have more people attending virtually than in person. And the case for it is going to be like, oh, look, we're doing a great job. We're servicing the community who can't get out and can't go there. And we're saving the planet by not having everybody drive and pollute and all that stuff. But what is it about Christianity that is either true or good that we are missing?
Or helpful.
Well,
or,
yeah,
or like contributes in a positive way to people's lives. True or good or valuable.
I agree with all that stuff as being more contributing factors than a decline in religiosity. I would say that, I guess, I know I said earlier that the decline in religiosity, I don't have any like data that suggests, necessarily that that's part of, the loneliness epidemic and everything. I guess more than the claim that a decline in religiosity is meaning an increase in loneliness and everything like that. I would more so make the claim that Christ-centered communities are, in my experience, and this is why it's good to listen to different people's experiences, but in my experience, I see churches as, whether or not the decline in religiosity is related to loneliness, I see churches as being good communities. And I also see churches, a lot of churches nowadays, being more inclusive and like tolerant and everything like that.
I think churches are good at building communities, but I don't think they're good at building good communities. Why do you think they're building good communities? What's good about them?
Well, I think that they're just like, it's just good to have community, and those are communities. I don't know, it's the same. You could ask the same question for what, I think board game communities are.
What about Jehovah's Witnesses? What about Scientologists? Are those good communities?
Well, but it is potentially the case that I'm sure, there are, groups of Scientologists, they have community, which is a inherently good thing because of Scientology, but it is kind of, that's a cult.
Yeah,
so,
communities can be destructive. Communities can be destructive, and religious communities. I don't have data for this. We'd have to look it up, but I would, believing false things is inherently bad in its own right. Like, at its face, it's bad to believe false things, and to build communities around false ideas would be bad. But I would argue, especially in the United States, the state of religious belief, the type of people you find hold these beliefs, also almost always hold other ass-backward, damaging beliefs, like anti-gay stuff and anti-trans stuff. So I would argue that the more religious communities exist in the United States, the worse the United States becomes as a result. That's a big claim, I know, but I need a little bit of data to back that up, but I would argue that board game communities significantly better in every single way than religious communities.
Unless you're playing Secret Hitler, and then you're just going to piss people off. But
right.
Which I'm fine with.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, when I asked, what makes the Christian, you're like, oh, these are good communities. And when I ask you what makes them good communities, you're just like, well, I think it's good to have community. Okay. What about these other communities?
The thing is, yeah.
Well, you haven't given a single reason why anybody should think that a Christian built community is good.
Well, obviously there's the fact that community is just good overall. So like community
Yes.
around anything
Yes,
else
I'm
would be
sorry
good as
this is
well.
difficult
But then,
for you, Zach, but when you say Christian communities in particular are good, you don't get to just say community is good, therefore Christian community is good. Because I don't think Christian communities are good enough. I think there are better communities. And you seem to be suggesting that the world has gotten worse as Christian community declined in particular.
well, I mean, I can't. I'm not like making that claim based on data. I really don't. That could be untrue, but um, it's I. It's just I, maybe the reason I can't necessarily give a reason. Maybe the like that I would know
You're
of.
the
Maybe
reason
the
I don't
reason is
listen
that
to diverse opinions. I actually do listen to diverse opinions, but you're making a
I
really
didn't say
bad
you
case.
didn't listen to diverse opinions.
I no, you're making a case for why should I? You are unable to express any sort of justification for your position and are like, it could be wrong. Okay. So did you just call in to say, hey, here's something I think and I can't demonstrate and I can't make an argument for, and you should really listen to me and other people too? Why? What do I get out of it?
Well, I didn't call in. Yeah, I didn't call in to make well, actually, I didn't call in to make a claim. I just called in to introduce the idea of building communities around secular humanism, maybe in a similar
Zach,
way
Zach,
to
do you think us
how
old
Christian
people,
communities.
you think us old people haven't been actively working on building communities and trying to build communities for decades? Like I've been an online, vocal, outspoken activist for more than 20 years now, helped build and grow the atheist community of Austin. I'm on the board of directors for American Atheists. I work with countless organizations, and then there's Sunday Assembly and Oasis and all of these church-like secular organizations that people have built. Maybe I don't, maybe you just don't have enough experience to know what everybody else has done before you come in and offer a suggestion you couldn't back up.
Well, I don't know what everyone else has done.
Why not? What have you tried to look? Have you looked around for secular community?
Also,
yeah, I mean, yes, I have, and I've found secular community, and I've also found Christ-centered communities. I'm not even Christian, but you know.
Okay. Which one's better and why?
Which one's better?
And why?
I mean, I would say it, and this is why I know this isn't backed by data. This is obviously everyone has different experiences. In my experience, in my experience, the
I'm so
Christians
sick of
that I
hearing
have
about
met
in your experience. Make a fucking case. Nobody cares about your experience. All you're doing is saying, here's what I think, but I don't want to stand behind it. I don't want to give a justification for it. I'm just telling you what I think. Why should we give a fuck what you think? Make your case, dude. Stand up.
Well, my case is my proposition is just that we kind of treat secular humanism as sort of not like a faith, because faith would be taking things without evidence, but we could treat it as having like core tenets, and those could be changing over time as new information comes in.
Are you aware of the Secular Humanist Manifesto?
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it or anything.
You have which version haven't you read? Any of them?
No, I have not read the Secular Humanism Manifesto.
So there have been 3 different versions of the Secular Humanist Manifesto over the last 100 years. They're all available online. You're calling in to say that I need to listen to a more diverse view of opinions because you've just discovered, evidently, that it might be a good idea to have some principles tied to secular humanism that might be useful in building community. Welcome to 100 years ago and 40 years ago and 20 years ago. If you would bother to do any research, you'd already know this. And you wouldn't be calling in to tell us about how you just discovered we should be working to have tenets for secular community.
Problem is, it's hard. It's hard to build communities generally. And I've been working on it as well. Some of these communities already exist and people just don't know about them. But I would argue that religious community is less preferable, or it's preferable to have non-religious community over religious community, which I think, would you agree with that?
Do you say it's preferable to have non-religious community over religious community?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess so. Yeah.
You're not really sure
Yeah.
about
I mean,
that? Or?
I would say the benefit of, I would say yes, is if like there's, but the benefit of, I guess, actually kind of faith, which is obviously the exact thing that you guys are like generally obviously don't want to take things on faith, which makes sense. But maybe the thing specifically about religious communities that makes them, more more like, I get, not better, but like more I guess good, or just makes them good communities, is just you have a community of people that are just taking things that are just, like, they're Christ-centered, and that's just what they believe, and it's not like evidence-based or whatever. But yeah, maybe non-religious
You don't
communities
think
are
it
better
has
than
anything to do
religious
with give us
communities.
20% of your money, and if you don't do what our God says, we're going to punish you forever in eternal torment? You don't think those are carrots and sticks with incentive to build communities?
No, I mean, that's not good, obviously. I'm just, let's just
How
end this
come
conversation
every
here.
time I point out a flaw, you're just like, that's not good, obviously, and yet every time I ask
Like,
for
a
what's
flaw
good, you
in what?
can't
Like, I'm not
well,
really
how
even.
come every time
I'm not even like. I'm not like making.
how come every time I ask for what's good, you can't offer anything?
Like, that I'm like like I'm like, sometimes there are people who are gonna come in and they're not necessarily like, gonna have like, this is what I'm claiming and this is what I'm like. I'm learning too. Like, I'm learning from you and I'm learning from
No,
other
no,
people,
no.
and I don't know like
You
why
could
you're
have
like
called in. You
coming
could have
at me
called in
like.
and said, "Hey, I don't know enough about secular humanism and secular humanist communities. Can you guys give me information on that?" But instead, you called in to, I don't know.
No, I mean, like, you gave me some information. You gave me information on what you do, and that's a good thing. And I don't know why you're like, I don't know why you're like
I'm old
coming
and
at me like
cranky.
you don't you.
I'm old
Anyways,
and
well,
cranky.
let's what
I'm old and cranky, and I've
what
actually been working on this for 20 years, and it's really annoying to have people come in and try to lecture and offer their thoughts when they
I'm
don't
not
even know the
lecturing.
very
I like that was the
basics.
opposite of
You,
lecturing. What I did,
no,
I'm
no,
just
no.
trying
You're
to learn,
saying
and that's why I
you
called
said
in basically.
you literally said that we need to structure secular humanism with things like tenets when you haven't even, you
Did I
weren't even
say we need
aware
to
that
do
there were
that?
multiple. You
Did I
weren't
say
even.
we
I don't
need
know
to do
why
that?
you're never ever going to be able to talk over me ever on my show. But you weren't even
Okay.
aware that there were multiple versions of the secular humanist manifestos that do the thing. You don't seem to be aware of all the people who've tried to do the very things they're advocating for. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate the fact that you would like for there to be more community. Yay, we're all on the same page. Community is generally a good thing. And Owen just tried to do the, which is preferable, secular community or religious community, and you seem to be leaning towards the secular community. And yet all you did at the outset was talk about how Jordan Peterson, the Christian, had good ideas and Christian communities are in decline. And you think that this is contributing to the world's decline and conflict, even though you're just going with your opinion and you don't have anything to back it on and everything else. That's the conversation that happened. It wasn't, hey, I'm interested in helping with secular community. Great. Cool. Have you reached
Well,
out
okay.
to
Worst
any
case.
secular humanist organization on the planet ever?
Well, okay. I'll just end this
Have
conversation
you
here.
reached
But the
out
last
to
thing.
any secular humanist organization on the planet ever?
American Atheist is good.
No, I've just
No.
recently started looking into this stuff. The last thing I'll say is, worst case scenario, you helped someone learn, and I don't know why you need to. I don't know why. Honestly, I don't
Because
know
I'm
why
old.
you are acting like this. But whatever.
Why I'm acting like this? Maybe it's because I'm doing a live show and I'm being, I don't know, Let's try this way. Let's try this way, Zach.
What?
You don't know anything about secular humanism, the manifestos, the communities.
You're right.
What
I
people?
don't.
I'm still
You're right,
talking.
I don't know a lot.
I'm still talking.
Okay. All right.
You don't know anything about that. You don't know anything about what anybody's done. And you've come in starting off with Jordan Peterson, Christian, good ideas. The decline of Christianity is contributing to the decline of civilization. And every time I asked you to tell me what was good about the community that Christianity built, you had zero answer. And then when we get to, hey, which is preferable, secular community or religious community, you kind of went with secular community. All we're trying to do is figure out, we all want community. I don't see any need or any benefit to Christian community or Muslim community that isn't better achieved elsewhere. That's what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for it evidently from someone who has no knowledge or understanding of the secular humanist community and yet wants to call in to say, hey, I think we should be doing this with the secular humanist community, something you've never been a part of. People have already been doing it. It's like calling in to say, hey, you know what? I think we should have some sort of subsidy that makes it so that people can afford healthcare a little better. Yeah, it's called insurance. We've had it for ages. Where have you been doing? That's how
Okay.
it feels.
Well, anyways, maybe calling in was part of the learning process, and that's it. Like, you're right. That's why I don't enter formal debates, because I'm 19 years old and I don't have, like, that's why I don't enter formal debates. That's why I just talk to people and try to learn. And
that's why you don't enter formal debates.
Like you just
listen to you talk. The very notion that the only thing keeping you from formal debates is why nobody mentioned formal debates but you. Formal debates aren't even a fucking thing, and nobody's expecting you or wanting you to do a formal debate. Nothing about this show is a formal debate. It is make your case for something.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that this is part of the learning process. Like, you're looking down at someone who's learning and who is trying to understand the world, and
I'm looking down.
Like, you're like,
I'm looking down
at you for this. And
did I say? When did I say that?
No, but you understand that.
When did I say fuck you, Zach?
And you said
it's getting ready to fucking happen. When did I say fuck you, Zach?
Well, you didn't say fuck you, but you're just
then why did you just accuse me of saying fuck you? Then why did you accuse me of saying something I didn't say?
Well, okay, you didn't say fuck you, but you're like,
why did you accuse me of saying something I didn't say?
Okay, my bad. That was a bad accusation, but you understand that this is not
Zach,
a good way
No, Zach, we're going to keep teaching you.
Well, anyways.
An apology doesn't just go my bad. It's I sincerely apologize for fucking misrepresenting you when I couldn't think of anything else to say. That's an apology.
I sincerely apologize for misrepresenting you when I couldn't think of anything else to say.
Thank you, Zach. What else you got? Is there some other way we can be productive today? I'd like to.
I think that Zach, how long have you been an atheist? Is this new? And was Jordan Peterson kind of your?
I've been on and off. I've been on and off Christian atheist my whole life. Mostly atheist though, because that's mostly how I grew up in an Orthodox community, but my parents were atheists. So.
Okay, wow. Your parents were atheists, but you were Orthodox. That's unusual. Interesting.
Yeah.
No, we grew up in an Orthodox community, but we were atheists.
Oh, you were around Orthodox people. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like Greek Orthodox or Orthodox Jews?
Yeah, we were Greek. We're ethnically Greek, so we were Greek Orthodox.
That's cool. Okay. Well, I was gonna say, I think that that like learning about the atheist community is
a good thing. Yeah, I agree.
It's kind of an uphill battle. It's kind of difficult sometimes. Fascinating, some of the arguments that atheists have been making for a long time and Christians have been refusing to listen to. But was talking to somebody at American
Yeah.
Atheists a while back, and they said this organization's been around for like a long, long time. And they said that at their headquarters, they have old brochures, documents, and books and stuff from atheists from the 1800s. And they were
Yeah.
the arguments and the conversations and stuff had are very, very similar to what they are today. You know, talking about free
Yeah.
thought and stuff like that. It's fascinating. But anyway, I hope you stick to it and kind of learn about how all of the arguments are made and why we make those arguments and stuff.
I will say,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like I
of
think
everything else, Zach,
I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you.
yeah, out of everything else, Zach, like I do have a genuine interest in somebody whose immediate family was non-religious or, you know, atheistic or secular, and then growing up in a religious community, especially one that I don't know much about. I mean, my first major debate was against an Orthodox priest.
Yeah.
But I don't know as much about the Orthodox community. I know
Me either.
base Protestantism. I know a bit of Catholicism from having stuff in there. And then there's different groups that I've studied over the years because they're more problematic. It's like this is why I asked about, you know, whether it's Greek Orthodox or Orthodox Judaism, because both of them are in a similar bucket to me, even though I fundamentally know they're not remotely the same thing, in that there's almost no interaction. Like, you got to jump through hoops to become a Jew, and they don't proselytize.
Yeah.
And the Orthodox community, it seems, and this could be completely wrong because I'm only looking at it from my experience, but it seems that they tend to keep more to themselves, not quite as much as, like, you know, the Amish or Mennonites or, you know, Christian Scientists and things like that would rather not have the public attention. But I knew nothing about the Orthodox Church until a few months before that first debate that I did, because we weren't debating some specific doctrine of Orthodox. Do you think?
Yeah,
How do you think that impacted your views on Christianity? Like, is the Orthodox community especially good at community that, you know, maybe local Methodist church isn't?
Well, actually, in terms of like, it was an Orthodox community, obviously centered around Christ, but then it was also a ethnic community, which is why we were able to participate when we didn't believe in Christ. And I would actually say, like, mostly, you're right that I don't have like a lot of, I really only have like my experience, but mostly like in my experience, it was like I feel like the community was okay, but then it was also like, I guess my dad had, I think there was some conflict because of the fact that we didn't believe in Christ. So in my experience, the Orthodox community was more of a closed community, especially because we had come into town like later after everyone else and everything like that. And in my experience, I actually went to a Christ centered community in university where there was like board gaming and whatnot, and I think that it was like Unitarian Christian, and in my experience they were very accepting of like LGBT. In my experience, that was much better community than Orthodox.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Orthodox is less preferable to any other type, then, is what you're saying. Like,
I have no idea. I'm just telling you my experience.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
No, I appreciate that. That is the type of experience that you know could have value, because it lets me know how you're looking at community. But so, for example, I'm a massive, well, I guess I can't even claim to be this anymore. I'm still a massive fan of board games, and I have hundreds of, there's an entire tower on a shelving thing in the kitchen. But early on, 20 years ago, when I first got involved in this community, there was a regular Monday night board gaming group that was part of the atheist community locally. And it's great. It got people together. We did stuff, and we kept it going until almost nobody was left showing up. And it declined even amongst the secularists as, and this is still correlation and not necessarily causation, but it declined as online gaming, online interactions, and things like that became preferable, I guess, for some people. Why should I, hop in the car and drive over to Matt's or Russell's or whoever's and, hang out with people? It gets cumbersome. There's not, man, we got to find a place to park, and they live in a spot where I'm probably gonna have to park around the corner, and if it's raining, I'm not gonna. It's so easy to come up with a million different excuses for why you don't have to play or why you don't have to go. And then even for those of us who like, board games, we like a lot of different games, and you can play straight up board games, like some of the best board games ever. You can play them just online and in a board game emulator or a specific version of it. And so I have all these board games. I still like them. But even if it's just, Arden loves it too. And so the two of us might sit down and we'll have a week where we play a whole bunch of 2-person board games, just the two of us. And then if we're really lucky, we'll get friends in town to come over, and we maybe get to do board games there. But I now have a massive collection of board games that almost never get touched. Because not because we're any less Christian than we were when we started it. You see what I'm saying? It's because other things have changed. Which one is the biggest contributor? I don't know. But when people come to me and they're like, "Oh, I see as Christianity declines, community declines," and I'm like, those might both be symptoms of similar issues.
Yeah, I also I agree that board gaming creates some of the best communities because it's such an engaging activity for everyone to do. And I can say my dad has you can hardly walk around his house because of all the board games he has. We both love board games, so I think board games are a really good way to make community. But yeah,
well, if you come to Austin, you and your dad can come over and play board games in my house if you want.
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you for your guys' time.
Thanks, Doc.
Thanks for calling.
Keep thinking, keep coming up with solutions, keep questioning stuff. Keep calling out the old folks. Seriously. Now, and I'm not even being facetious. I'm being serious, but I'll explain why in just a second. From a political standpoint, some of my favorite political figures, the ones that I am, and I'm going to disagree with them, and they're not going to have enough knowledge or experience in some areas, but the people that I want to see elected, like Mamdani, like AOC, like Kat Abou-Ghazaleh, I wish I could vote for her. If for no other reason than the status quo is in desperate need of being overthrown. The rut, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we should do it. These are the people you have to listen to. These are the money strings you have to pay attention to. All of that desperately needs to change. And you're not going to do that with career politicians, and you're not going to do that with older politicians that had to work through that same broken system. I'm not trying to be ageist. I'm not trying to throw necessarily limits on things, but I'm more in favor of them now than ever. And not just because Trump's old and Biden's old and we have senators that clearly are catatonic and can't respond and have to be shuffled away by their handlers, and nobody's doing anything about it. So right now, if you're over 40 and you're running against somebody who's under 40, you've already got one demerit in my book. If you're over 60 and you're running against somebody under 40, you have two demerits. It's not an actual system. It's just, we got to change some stuff. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real quick, I'm going to take one call because somebody's calling to correct me, and hopefully we'll knock this out really quickly. But Jay, pronouns are him, is calling from Switzerland to tell me the Treaty of Tripoli is not evidence of secularism. Jay, when did I say it was?
Yes. Hello. I am very grateful that you take my call. I have seen many of your shows before, and I am since almost 1 year watching your shows here and your debates. And you repeatedly cite the Treaty of Tripoli, if I am correct, that shows that America is based on secularism, or based on the Treaty of Tripoli.
Nope.
Never heard that before.
So what I have said, and just in case I misspoke at some point, let me correct the record. The Treaty of Tripoli states that the United States of America is not in any way founded upon Christianity and doesn't have a quarrel with Muslims. That is not a pronouncement of secularism. It is an affirmation that a treaty, which was unanimously approved, stated to another group that the United States is not expressly Christian. What makes the United States secular is the First Amendment, which guarantees freedom of religion, which includes freedom from religion.
Okay. I hope I didn't misunderstand then. Sorry for my lack of knowledge in the English language.
It could be a language thing. I could have misspoke. Matter of fact, I've done this for 20 years. I'm sure at some point I've misspoke. But no, I don't think the Treaty of Tripoli is confirmation that the United States is secular. I think that's done in the First Amendment to the Constitution, and in the fact that during the congressional congresses, every single time someone proposed that we include God-oriented language in the Constitution, every single time that was proposed, it was voted down. Those are the things that show that the United States was founded on secular principles with no adherence or reliance on any particular religion. And it was the first, or one of the first, to have a secular constitution. And then that Treaty of Tripoli that was unanimously ratified basically is an affirmation at a minimum that we are at least not expressly a Christian nation.
But why would you say then that? Because there is if I understood correctly, there were punishments specifically against blasphemy, let's say, for example, in the Americas, for people with other religions. So I feel like that wouldn't make the Americas very secular or religious neutral in that sense.
The Constitution of the United States is expressly secular, not only in the fact that it doesn't affirm any religion, but it specifically states that there shall be no religious test for any public office or trust. That said, individual states had laws that were in violation of the Constitution, including blasphemy laws, including restrictions, including requirements that people, like, for example, the Texas state constitution still to this day says that you can't hold office unless you believe in a God or profess a belief in a God. That constitution of that state was ruled unconstitutional by the United States or the United States Supreme Court. So they're never going to change the wording of the Constitution because that takes effort and people to vote, and they're not going to do it. But it was an unlawful law. And the same was true for blasphemy laws throughout time. Oh, I don't know. Owen's better on history stuff than I am. Is that?
Yeah, that sounds right to me. A lot of the basis for our secular status as a country is Supreme Court precedent, which was set by the founding fathers specifically. Like, they wrote the Constitution and then they immediately amended it. And then they interpreted those amendments within 10 to 15 years. Like, Thomas Jefferson worked with the Supreme Court to establish a lot of this. So a lot of our secular status is based on Supreme Court precedent, which was built in, which was, created intentionally by the founding fathers, basically, in like 1805 or whatever.
And I think there were less than 10 states that had blasphemy laws.
Yeah, and of course it's illegal to run for office as an atheist in some states. The federal government has always worked toward secularism. The states have always tried to fight against secularism, and that's the reason why we have all of the, a lot of the laws and Supreme Court decisions that we do, because states like Connecticut tried to push for state churches and stuff.
Okay. So there may have been more than 10 at one point, but at some point we were down to like 6. But all of them have been ruled unconstitutional. Just like Texas can try all day long and say that I can't run for office as an atheist, but the United States Constitution trumps that, and the precedent of the Supreme Court decisions trumps that until, and this is the dangerous part where we get back to Owen's mug, until the Supreme Court decides to ignore precedent and just start changing things. Is that kind of clear up?
Yes, and also they're already erasing a lot of stuff. Like, there's something called the Lemon Test, and the Lemon Test was basically a Supreme Court ruling that said any law must have a secular purpose, and they erased that a couple of years ago. Like, it no longer exists because of the Supreme Court. It existed for literal centuries, I believe, and they erased it recently. So they're doing their best, but yeah.
But if I may ask, wouldn't all these differences just underline the fact that the USA is still not as secular as we think? Like, if
I'm talking about, you seem to be addressing the fact that the overwhelming majority of people in the United States are religious. That's irrelevant to whether or not the law, like, for example, we have no official state religion, and officially we cannot have a state religion. That's not true for a lot of other countries.
Okay. Thank you so much for just addressing my point of view. I think I have to read through it again. I was just a bit confused when you mentioned the Treaty of Tripoli as a foundation of secularism for the United States, but it seems to be a bit more complicated.
Yeah, it is a reflection of the thought at the time, and an express declaration unanimously approved by Congress stating to another nation that we are not a Christian nation. That's what the Treaty of Tripoli does. It is not a binding legal document like the Constitution, just like the Declaration of Independence is not a foundation of United States law. It is irrelevant. It is the Constitution is the one and only document, and that document specifically says there will be no religious test for any public office or trust. But that's completely separate from whether or not the majority of people believe that, or, this is just about what the government can do.
And religion has always tried to force its will on everything and everybody around it since day one. And that's what it's doing now. It's trying to force its will on the country. But the United States, as a matter of law, is secular and has been since day one. It was, in fact, the first secular constitution of a country this size. Not even close. So anyway, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to learn and to talk to you.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
I highly recommend Andrew Seidel's book. A couple of books, including The Founding Myth. Andrew Seidel's book goes into great detail on the various myths about Christian nation founding, etc. So,
may I know the name again? Sorry.
Yep, Andrew Seidel.
Yes.
The book is called The Founding Myth.
Seidel. He's awesome.
He's been a guest on here many times. Friend of mine, but yes, look at the book is called The Founding Myth. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it matters because honestly, whatever the United States was, it isn't that anymore, and we have no confidence right now that any of us can predict what it's going to be.
Yeah.
One of our mods just posted a link to the book in the chat. So if you look at the chat from Calasia, The Founding Myth, that's right there for you.
Yeah.
Oh.
He helped
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good day. All right. Hey, you ready to hear a case for God?
I am ready. Let's do it.
I am ready too. But since I just heard the voice of God, or as close to God as I'm likely to get, Arden, who's coming up tonight on the Sunday show after dark? And is there something in between?
Yes, there is something in between this week. It's going to be Jimmy and Forrest on Calling It Now. And let me pull up the calendar to look at. It looks like it's going to be Forrest and Paul and Gia for the late show. It's going to be Forrest again and John Glee. Wow, you guys got 3 Forrest shows in the next day and a half.
This must have been like the only weekend of Forrest had available for a while, and he's like, "I'll just do a Calling It Now and a After Dark and a Skeptalk." And
yep. Then it's going to be Alyssa and Taylor on Chewed Gum on Tuesday. Alyssa will be joining us on The Hang Up on Wednesday. And then Josie will be joined by Riverboat Jack on TACIS this coming Thursday. So I know some of you really liked her and wanted to know if she was coming back. Riverboat Jack will be on TACIS this Thursday. And then next Sunday will be Matt and Promise again.
Awesome. Last question before I get to this caller. How much do you like the puppy that we're fostering?
She's very, very sweet. She's very eager to please. And so I think it's going to work out. She was highly trainable. I will say I am very tired. The first 24 hours with her has been exhausting, but I'm sure we will adapt.
By the way, just for everybody out there, I know I said it earlier, dog's been behind me, 4 feet behind me, in her crate for the entire show. Not a peep. So I'm already vastly optimistic over this. We have Ryan calling from New York, prone to him. Ryan's a theist who says grounding ethics, I think the necessity of particular objective ethic beliefs point to the existence of God. Hey, Ryan, how are you?
Hey, gentlemen. What's up? Can you hear me well?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay, good. I clicked on this. I was messing around on YouTube, as I do on Sundays, and I saw the title of the video here was, the arguments for God suck. I do disagree, obviously. I'm curious, before I even get into this, I don't want to waste your time or my time. What would qualify for the two of you as like a good argument? What makes an argument good?
I have no idea.
Just convince me that God's real. That's all I'm looking for.
Okay, I mean, I'll try my best.
Okay.
So are you two? Would you call yourselves like moral relativists, or are you objectivists?
I don't think there's an objective moral foundation, but I'm not a moral relativist because moral relativism specifically says that each culture defines it rather than there being something that would be correct if we were to all agree on
Right.
how we define morality, like if it's well-being or, you know. So I'm closer to a consequentialist, but not a simple consequentialist. But in any case, I'm unaware of any objection to secular moral systems that are in any way solved by appealing to a God. So go for it.
Yeah. So yeah, you brought up an interesting point, and this and I'm not really trying to debate or anything. I became a theist after I read Crime and Punishment. So this argument's kind of, if you don't find it convincing, I at least did. You mentioned that, if we kind of agree on a certain axiom, like this particular, we have to go for well-being, for example, right? We have to try and maximize well-being. Sure. Then we can form objective conclusions following that axiom. And I kind of think of morals from that perspective as almost mathematical, right? Like if we start from a two-dimensional plane with Euclid's postulates, we can make a triangle and it's 180 degrees ipso facto. So I think that's totally possible in a secular humanist system. Like if we agree on certain axioms, we can draw objective conclusions from those axioms. I think the issue for me with I'm sorry.
I just want to interrupt for just 1 second. Are we in agreement that we can reach correct, or maybe correct isn't the right word? Can we go with correct? Just maybe we'll nitpick it later. We can reach correct moral conclusions through purely secular means.
No, so I can't grant the word correct. I can say objective in like the first order, objective based on the axioms you start with.
Ryan, the way I've described it for, I don't know, 15 years now is, while there may not be any objective moral foundation, you can make non-subjective assessments by comparing the consequences of actions with respect to a defined goal.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Like going back to the Euclidean postulate kind of thing, right?
Yeah, my go-to example has been chess. My go-to example has been chess because I play a fuck ton of chess and I'm not good. But the rules are essentially arbitrary, but as long as you have the goal of not losing, whether or not a move is better or worse is non-subjective.
Yes, yeah, no, I agree with that. So if I'm going to call that like first order types of things, then yeah, I agree with that. So my problem though is when you step back and you bring that to the second order. So we're both agreed, hey, if you start with this set of axioms, like this type of goal, whatever the case may be, you can draw objectively, I guess, correct based on those axioms, objectively correct based on those axioms, conclusions or ways to handle the thing. The problem is if we go back to that second order step, the actual axioms that we're relying upon, it seems to me that we run into an issue there because either we can justify the axioms we're starting with, which would require an objective foundation for those axioms, or it seems we necessarily collapse into relativism. So if you have your country over there and everybody agrees in the first instance on those axioms you're starting with, you can reach objective like, yeah, okay, we want to do this. This is the best way to do it, like in a pragmatic way. But if my country over here, we all agree that our axioms are different. Maybe your axioms are everybody should have a nice house with a nice TV. And over in my country, the axioms are everybody should go through the most horrific torture imaginable or something, or the caste system or just something like that. Now, we can both reach objectively appropriate ways to achieve those goals, but what grounds those goals?
Yeah. So I think the way we kind of work through this is that if we agree that the goal is to work towards a better world, and I know that's a poison thing, better for whom, better for you, better for me, better for all, better for most. But if we agree that we would say, okay, we want a better world.
Mhm.
Then if you think everybody should be tortured, then it's incumbent on you to show how that leads to a better world. How are you defining better world? And I'm not aware of any objective criteria that we can use to say, oh, here's the objective absolute standard that we can use. I think we're constantly discovering and learning and moving towards whatever the optimal would be. But we are able to identify which paths, some of which paths definitely don't lead or almost certainly don't lead to the optimal world. I don't know how, like, I don't think that objective standard exists in any way we can point to, but even if it did, why would that mean it's a God?
I mean, we can get to that in a second. I mean, please, I'm not trying to dodge. Don't let me forget that. I can address
Okay.
that. But back to your point on better, if you don't mind. So,
Sure.
and you acknowledged it as you were saying it. Like better is kind of subjective at that point. I mean, it's interesting because I think a few seconds later you said that I am like obligated to present some kind of account as to why I think my version of my outcome is better than somebody
Yes.
else's outcome. But even that itself,
Yes.
I would say, is an ethical obligation, right? Like we have an ethical obligation to make and accept logical arguments if they are sound, and try to make sound arguments, right? So even
We
that
may,
would
but
actually
when
be
I said
subject.
when you, I don't know that we need to go down whether or not there's an ethical obligation on that front. What I'm saying is, if I say I want a better world, and you say you want a better world, and you say you have a
Mhm.
path to a better world, you are the one that needs to make a case for your better world, and I'm the one that needs to make a case for my better world. And if it turns out we're in agreement, cool. And if we're not, then we're going to have to figure out at what point we're in disagreement. Like, I think you can build a secular moral system out of incredibly simple foundations. Like, it is generally, I don't, only a Sith deals in absolutes or whatever. Sorry to get geeky. It is generally, life is generally preferable to death. Health is generally preferable to sickness. Pleasure is generally preferable to pain. Knowing that there are exceptions to these, that when your quality of life is so bad, death could actually become preferable to life, means that what we're talking about is not so much dealt with in terms of objective or subjective or absolute or relative, which I think one of the biggest mistakes is people say, oh, it's either objective or relative. No. It's either absolute or relative. It is either objective or subjective. And what we're talking about, oh, crap. Right in the middle of my thing, I sidetracked myself. I'll let you continue and maybe I'll come up with it again. Damn it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you think of it, just interrupt me. So you mentioned, for example, that I need to, maybe from a pragmatic perspective, as opposed to some kind of like ethical obligation. Sure, I need to convince
Yeah.
you that this outcome is superior. I
Yes.
think even that though depends on you ethically obliging me not to just kill you and do what I want instead, right? Like that's something
Yes.
that I could do. But in theory, that's something that somebody could do. I could
But I
just
don't think that
subjugate
makes it
you,
right.
and
I mean, wouldn't that?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that's relevant. So, you could kill me and say I don't give a shit what your view of better is, and there's nothing I do about it. And I would be of the opinion that that was immoral. And if you're of the opinion that that is a moral act, we would at least still be in disagreement, and you wouldn't have done anything to demonstrate that your view is correct. You'd have just said, I'm going to delete the views I don't like. But and you can do that. Nothing can stop you. There's not even, no gods are stopping anybody from doing it.
Sure. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. What if my axiom is starting from the position that I'm right, and if anyone disagrees with me, I need to actually kill them in order to enforce this, like the communists did, for example, like Stalin or whoever.
Okay.
Like this is what I'm pointing out. So you're starting with this kind of axiom that we shouldn't be killing each other. We should actually be putting things on the public debate floor.
No. I'm
I'm
starting with that as an axiom. That's not a starting axiom. That is a conclusion based on goals. And
Well, but that is
I
the
have,
goal, isn't it?
and my, I'm not saying that my goals are absolute or objectively correct. I'm telling you what my study. Would you agree with me, Ryan, that it's much better for us to work as cooperatively as possible to find the point of disagreement than it is for one of us just to kill the other one and keep going?
I think, like, in this hypothetical conversation, right, I need to know what the word better means before I can agree with that. That's kind of my point.
Okay, I find that ridiculous, and yeah.
Well, I mean, it could be a very simple answer.
If
you
we
could say
can't
something
even,
like,
if we can't even have a conversation, like, we're not all going to agree on what kind of world we want, but we all want better world. So if it turns out you and I can't even agree that just between the two of us, a better world is one where we're not killing each other, then I'm done talking to you.
well, I'm not saying I actually believe that a better world is one where we're killing each other. What I am saying
I
is
literally
that I don't
asked you
see...
if we could agree with that, and you decided to hem and haw. I have no interest in talking to people who can't, apart from showing you why you're wrong, to not just say, yes, I would agree. It's better for us not to just kill each other when we disagree. I mean, I presented that as a preposterous oversimplification in order to move the conversation forward. And instead that became a roadblock. So maybe Owen's got
No, I apologize. I didn't mean to do that. What I mean to say is, like, if you want to say, for example, we can probably agree. Like, the reason I presume we could agree that not killing people is a better way to move forward is because we have a biological drive to survive, and depriving people of that, death is a bad thing to go through, especially if it's
And
just
I don't
for
agree
something that
that's
you
the
believe
reason.
or are convinced. Well, I'm curious. This is just an example. What do you think is the reason? Why is it bad to, like, be dead or to be killed?
I don't know that it is bad to be dead, but I know that I prefer living at this moment to not living. And because of that, it's in my best interest as a purely practical, pragmatic position to say, I understand that in order for people to be likely to afford me a right to life, I need to guarantee that as my view towards them as well. And that we know from game theory that cooperative view of, okay, my right to wave my arms ends at your nose. We should operate, using Rawls' veil of ignorance. We should, make sure that we're not set up the type of system that you want to live in, not knowing who you're going to be in it. All of these principled ideas that remove the bias as much as possible are at our disposal. I don't think that it's wrong to kill someone because of some biological drive to stay alive. I think it's wrong to kill people because they have value to themselves and to others. And because if I create a world where it's okay for you to kill me and me to kill you, then I have created a world where I'm working against my own best interest. I mean, that's just obvious.
Well, sure, but I mean, why do you believe that humans? What makes humans, like, more valuable than a chicken or something? I presume you're not.
I didn't say humans were more valuable than a chicken. I didn't put any value comparison on it at all. I merely said my life has value to me. I'd rather not die.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that it's in my best interest to understand that other people feel that same way, and that those of us who do can work together to make sure that we're going to guarantee a right to life. I didn't guarantee a right to life to a chicken.
Well, no, I understand that, but I'm saying you seem to be kind of starting from the fact that humans have value, or is that a mischaracterization?
No, I'm not. I just said that wasn't an axiom. That is a conclusion based on my desire to not be killed.
Okay, so your desire not to be killed is the axiom?
It is not the mere. I mean, that's not the axiom either. I mean, it's not an axiom. It is a fact currently. There may come a time where I would like to die.
Okay, so maybe I think we're getting closer here. Like, is the axiom that a person's preferences should be respected as long as, like, they're not hurting someone else? Or, like, what would be the axiom here?
Individual sovereignty and liberty And that is measured by the fact that we are stuck sharing space and must live cooperatively. That it doesn't benefit me in any way to kill off everybody else and keep the resources of the planet to myself. And since I'm going to have to share the planet with people, it's in my best interest to make sure that my life is what I'd like it to be, to work together with others to ensure that we're doing it.
That kind of sounds to me, though, and I'm not trying to mischaracterize or anything, but that sounds to me kind of like Nietzsche's will to power or something like that. It sounds like
I don't care I don't care who it sounds like or what it sounds like. I'm telling you what I think. Pointing to some other philosopher, pointing to some philosopher who agrees. How does any of this point to a God, and how does a God solve any of the problems you're presenting?
Can I ask one more question before we get there?
Sure.
You mind? Thank you. So is it fair to say, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but is it fair to say that ultimately self-interest is the axiom which informs how we're going to form a society here? Like, I don't want to be killed, so I need to set up a society where I can't kill anyone because no one can kill me at that point, that kind of thing.
No, not necessarily. So when I'm talking about individual sovereignty and liberty, certainly my self-interest is considered, but I also do it with the recognition that my immediate self-interest may be detrimental to my other goals and survival. For example, I'm a terrible diabetic. I've also had a triple bypass. If I was only concerned, thanks. If I was only concerned about living as long and as good as I can, I would have made changes. But I also value doing what I like to do and eating what I like to eat. And so I balance those things and try to make sure that it doesn't end my life. And as long as I'm making the decisions that impact my life, then there may be very little moral overlap with other people's lives. And so affording people, essentially, we're back to a version of Rawls' veil of ignorance. But if I design the world that I want to live in, not knowing who I'm going to be, does my world allow for slavery? Nope, because I could come in as a slave, or I could come in as a slave owner, and neither of those would be consistent with my values. I wouldn't want to be either one. Do I want to have consequences for people stealing things? Yeah, because I'd like to not have my stuff stolen. Do I like to have consequences and people work? All of those things are just pragmatic. Hey, I don't know which side of the scenario I'm going to come down. So what I'm advocating for, and here's what I forgot a minute ago, instead of objective, subjective, absolute, relative, the term is situational ethics. Every situation, and while there are many that are incredibly similar, will have its own moral assessment.
No, I totally agree with that. Like with those first order understandings based off of the axioms. But again, I'm not really talking about those first order kind of things. I'm talking about the second order here, the actual axioms we're starting from. So it seems to me, even if we go back to the self-interest axiom, I don't think you're necessarily refuting that. I just think you're saying that self-interest comes in many forms. So it's not absolute, right? So we have a self-interest in life. We also have a self-interest in enjoying life. We have to balance those things out. But ultimately, those two are bound together as manifestations of self-interest. Is that fair to say?
Sure, just to move this on, sure, close enough. I still don't know how we're getting to a God.
Well, so if we were, and I'm sorry we kind of couldn't get to something you were a little more pleased with, but if we were to say, for example, that self-interest is our axiom here, then we could use that to justify things in the first order that you wouldn't agree with. So you could use Rawls's veil of ignorance, sure, but I'm not necessarily bound to use Rawls's veil of ignorance. I could set up, if I'm a Brahmin from 5,000. I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, I was sorry, I was mumbling. You're not bound to do anything. We're trying to find out, like, do you have any way, Ryan, and I'm pretty sure we both know the answer. Do you have any way to demonstrate that there is in fact a God that has a moral view that is the correct one?
So if we're going to go, and I will get into this like one more sentence, and then I'll transition there. So if we're going to say, for example, that our axiom is something like self-interest, I think we then have to go and ask, okay, what informs my self-interest? So if we live in a naturalistic, materialistic universe, what informs my self-interest is going to be natural selection, ultimately. Now, if natural selection, if the things that I've been selected to do.
Oh, like
okay,
also,
just keep going.
All right,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Sure. Okay, so the things that natural selection has kind of inclined me towards, biologically, I want to be alive because I've been selected to that. I want to eat some sugar sometimes because that's been selected. I want to, sleep a certain number of hours a night. I want to reproduce. All these things are kind of biological inclinations. And offering me certain latitude doesn't seem like a necessary output of maximizing self-interest. If I'm a Brahmin from 5,000 years ago, I might want to set up a caste system, which will ensure that my family is going to be above everybody else's families forever. Now, you may disagree with that based on like 21st century humanistic principles, but to your point, I don't think I'm bound to follow 21st century humanistic ethical principles.
Okay,
I'll pause there.
So first of all, you're advocating, you're skipping past the veil of ignorance and actually throwing it out the window in order to suggest a veil of non-ignorance, where you specifically set up a system that only favors your family. But that's myopic, because maybe your family isn't the one that's actually going to be good at providing food or curing disease or extending your life. It is the myopic nature of I'm only going to care about mine and my own, which we already know is a problem through game theory. And it's also why we're advocating for the veil of ignorance. So do you have any way to show that there is a God who has a moral view that is the correct one?
I think, and we can transition, excuse me. I'm not really satisfied with that, but we can keep moving forward.
It's a yes or no question that you've offered to answer 2 or 3 times, and I'm just asking it again because I'd like to find out, do you have any way to show that there is a God who has a moral view that is the correct one?
If we're talking about the correct one in terms of which religion would be right, off of this single question, I could not demonstrate which religion was the right religion. Absolutely not.
I didn't ask a thing about religion. I don't give a fuck about religion.
Well, I'm just talking about the last part of your sentence there.
I don't understand why a yes or no question is so difficult. Do you have
the answer
any way?
Is no for that.
Thank you
for that version of the question.
If you have no way to show, if you have no way to show that there is, if you have no way to show that there is a God who has the correct moral view, the next question is, do you have any way to demonstrate that there is a correct moral view?
I think the argument, so to the previous question, the answer would be no, because you said the correct one, which to my understanding, you were pointing out like this religion or that religion.
Let's pause. This is not about religion. Now, so if you don't have a way to demonstrate a correct moral view, and that there, my follow-up question is, do you think there is a correct moral view that we have access to, or perhaps one that we are just moving towards?
Yeah, so I would say that the answer is yes. The answer is yes. I think ethics are actually obligatory, and what I was trying to kind of get to with the previous line of questioning is that people will find certain ethics obligatory under all circumstances. So maybe the ethical obligation to seek truth, or an ethical obligation to accept sound logical argumentation, or an ethical obligation not to kill innocent people, or whatever the case may be. My point is just that, the point I was trying to make is that if you're like a secular humanist, when we take that back to the second order, we don't seem to have a justification for why those are the way that they are, and why those are necessary.
You just admitted that you don't have a justification for your second order either.
Well, but that would actually be God, because if the universe
no. No, 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 no. You don't just get to assert that you have a justification and it's God. I specifically asked, do you have some way to show that there is a God who has the
Yeah, no,
correct moral? I'm sorry,
I can
I'm
do that.
sorry, I'm still talking. I specifically asked if you had a way to show that there's a God who has the correct moral view, and your answer was no. So you don't then get to assert that the correct moral view, that the correct moral foundation is God. First of all, you haven't said which God, you haven't made any case for it, and now you're just asserting that you have a solution to the problem you've already admitted you can't demonstrate a solution to.
No, I said in this particular argument, I'm not arguing for a particular religion. I'm just grounding giving a justification for morality.
No, Ryan. You tried to bring up religion, and I said I wasn't asking about religion, nor do I care about religion. I asked very clearly in multiple different ways, do you have a way of demonstrating a correct moral view? Do you have a way of demonstrating that there's a God that has a correct moral view? The answer to those was no. And now you're saying that secular humanism, which nobody is claiming is necessarily a correct moral view, it is a path towards an improving moral view. It has as its foundation the goal of getting better at getting better. You're saying that doesn't give you those second order foundations. Nobody says it does. I don't think there are any such foundations the way you're trying to do it. And you're now saying that in fact it's God, but you've already acknowledged you have no way of demonstrating that. So you're just making an unfounded assertion.
Well, no,
what's the founding?
So I think it has to be God based on the impossibility of the contrary. That's the end of the sentence there.
No. The impossibility of the contrary only exists if you can demonstrate that in fact a correct moral view exists. And,
well, no, but Matt, that's not what I'm trying to do at this point.
And that the only way that correct moral view can exist is by a particular God, neither of which you've even attempted to do.
Well, but I'm saying that we have certain objective ethical axioms which we rely on, which are going to be things like don't kill innocent people.
No, we don't.
Okay, so what ethical axioms do you rely on?
Give me an objective ethical axiom that is absolute.
Such as it is wrong to kill an innocent person, something like that.
Under all circumstances?
A priori.
Under all
to kill
circumstances.
An innocent person, a priori, yes.
Okay, I reject that.
Okay, so so what are your objective, or not objective? What would be an ethical axiom for you?
I'm not aware of any objective, absolute ethical axioms. I have things that, like, for example, you'd never get me to kill an innocent person. But that does not mean that my position is that it's axiomatic that there are no circumstances under which that would be acceptable. I can't think of any circumstances where it would be acceptable. It certainly wouldn't be acceptable to me. But I'm not claiming to have an objective, absolute moral standard. I'm merely talking about seeking the best standard that we have access to. You're the one claiming that such a standard exists, and you haven't demonstrated it. And you're claiming that it must exist because of God, because nothing else will do that, which you also haven't demonstrated.
Well, yeah, so two points on that. The first one is, if that's the case, if we don't actually have foundational moral axioms that we're bound to, then I don't see any reason I couldn't set up my alternate society over here and, do Nazi stuff or whatever. I don't think you'd be able to call that wrong. It literally has happened.
It literally has happened, Ryan. It's literally happened over and over. What on earth makes you think there's anything to stop that? It has happened. There's nothing stopping you from going and being a Nazi.
Sure, but I'm just saying you couldn't call me evil in that case.
I can absolutely call you evil. I can absolutely fucking call you evil. You're evil. The Nazis are evil. And I can say that because they are inconsistent with the best moral principles as I understand them. That doesn't mean that it's an objective absolute. I'm expressing my view that the Nazis are evil. Do you think the Nazis are evil? If so, we're in agreement and we can work together to oppose them. If not, then fuck you.
Well, I can say that they're objectively evil, but it sounds like you're only saying they're subjectively evil.
You can say they're objectively evil, but you have no foundation by which to show that they're objectively evil, which you've already acknowledged, because you have no way of demonstrating a correct moral view. You just really fucking want there to be one, and you'd like it to be yours, or at least the God that you like. Well, too bad. Which God are you advocating for, by the way? The Christian God, the one that's okay with slavery, the one that's not okay with equality? Or do you have a different one that's your moral foundation?
Well, I'm not actually. So I'm not making a first order argument here. I'm purely making the justificatory argument, right? So I'm saying,
no. My question was, which God do you think has the correct moral positions?
Well, that's not really relevant to my line.
It is relevant. It's the question I'm fucking asking on my fucking show, because I'm done fucking wasting time on you avoiding it. Which God?
No, that's fair. I'll answer that. I'm Christian.
Cool. Are you okay with slavery?
If we're talking about the slavery in 3,500 years ago, I think there's a lot of context there. Like, it's more like indentured servitude. They didn't have a free market economy. He set up laws as to limitations on how you could treat certain servants in those instances. It's not like they could bounce from job to job.
Bible,
they needed something to survive.
The Bible, no. The Bible says you shall buy your slaves from the heathen that surround you. They are your property. You can pass them on to your children. You can beat them as long as they don't die within a couple of days. Are you okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Goodbye.
It's not. If you get to the New Testament.
No. When I say goodbye, you're done. I don't need ever to be lectured on the philosophical, we're going to have to worry about the justifications, but you don't have an objective foundation. I'd rather not have an objective foundation than to be so grossly, vastly, morally broken that I'm willing to make excuses for owning people as property. If your objective moral foundation from your mind or your God's mind is that it is okay to own people as property and beat them as long as they don't die right away, then we are never going to agree. I don't even care if yours is, if you're correct that that's a God, it's just wrong. It is wholly inconsistent with both my subjective situational ethics, but it is also inconsistent with everything we've ever learned about what makes the world a better place and for whom. It is inconsistent with Rawls' veil of ignorance. It is inconsistent with everything that we've learned since your antiquated Bronze Age goat herding, let's go kill everybody and keep all the virgin girls for ourselves progenitors fucked all this stuff up. You know how much farther we would be on understand? I wouldn't have to be taking calls from Phil Bros. We're talking about secular, let's talk about the problem with secular ethics. The problem with secular ethics is that it has humility. It recognizes that we are in the process of learning more about how the world works, and it's a dynamic world, and that not every situation is the same. And that if we have the goal of getting better at getting better, that means we need to be able to change things and not just pretend that someone saying, hey, it's okay to kill these people. Hey, it's okay to enslave these people. Hey, it's okay to force someone to marry the woman they just raped. All of the things in your precious holy book. I know I left and didn't finish the thought, but wow.
That was wild. I don't normally come across people who will actually say, I am defending the slavery in the Bible. But when I do come across them, they, it's always an argument about how it wasn't really slavery and all this other garbage. Insane, dude.
It was indentured servitude, as if indentured servitude isn't also immoral. And by the way, if you don't have a robust legal system with what's that we were talking about earlier, due process and basic human dignity, a guarantee that you have some recourse, you're all slaves. When the fascists take over, slavery wins. But I definitely I'm happy to engage and talk about this. By the way, you can Google. I gave a lecture, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago, probably, on the superiority of secular morality, where I went through it in great detail. And over the years, we refined some things. And, Sam Harris wrote The Moral Landscape, and he and I are largely in agreement on the nuts and bolts of that. But at the end of the day, the problem with secular humanism is that it's incomplete. The benefit to secular humanism is that it knows it's incomplete and is working on that. The problem with Christianity and the Bible is that it is morally bankrupt and corrupt. And the other problem with it is that it can't be corrected. How do you say, oh, those people got that wrong? Take my word for it instead of the people who are supposedly inspired by God. I'm the new inspired by God, and I'm okay with gay people. Great. Congratulations. I'm glad you're better than your holy book. But and by the way, if you go down that route, what you'll find is the Bible in conflict with itself on moral positions, which is still moral relativism. And even if it gets down to your God's character or opinion is the correct one, that is still subjective morality.
Yeah, I have long said it's impossible to get your morals from the Bible because it contradicts itself every other chapter. Any moral precept it lays down is contradicted a chapter later.
Real quick, before we get on to our next callers, we have room for probably one more theist today. So if you're a theist out there who thinks that, the previous callers just really weren't up to snuff, you've got an argument for God that doesn't suck. I would love to have you call in and take a swing at it. Unless you're fucking that dude from Croatia who keeps calling our call screener, you can get wrecked. Yeah, anyone else can call in.
It's funny because, and that was a fine start, but it represents not only the problem with Christian apologists, but also the dishonesty. Because the topic of the show is the arguments for God suck. And here's somebody who's like, oh, I saw your thing about the arguments for God suck, and I don't think they do suck. And so I would like to make a case for it. And so how many times did I have to ask, hey, are we going to get to your case for God yet? And then it turns out it's just an assertion that if objective morals exist, which I'm not convinced they do, then they must come from God, which is a completely unfounded assertion. It's not an argument. It is not supported by evidence. It is not rational. It is a declaration. It is an unfounded assertion that this is the way it has to be. There's no demonstration there. That is, by definition, another one of the many arguments for God that suck because they're not arguments. You guys wouldn't know. I mean, you clearly, the guy I talked to, not an idiot, understands the basics, has thought about it, and yet did the same thing that most apologists do, which is, wow, kind of feels like there might be objective morals. I really wish there was objective morals. I really want there to be objective moral standards, because if not, then I have no way of saying somebody else is wrong. And if I pretend like there's objective moral standards, then I can just claim somebody's wrong, which is why he came at me with well, you can't say I'm wrong. Yes, I absolutely can. And what's more, if you weren't tap dancing around, like when you answered the questions, like, can we both agree that this is a goal? Well, blah, blah, blah. Wow, really? We can't even agree? I'm happy to agree that there's no circumstance that I can think of under which I would be willing to kill an innocent person. I don't need that to be an axiom. I don't need this whole thing about axioms. This is precept stuff. I don't need an axiom. I can begin with the completely wrong goals and then find out they're wrong, because what I think my goal is, which is, I want to be happy. That may not actually be it may not even be a possible goal. It may be, I want to be healthy. I want to live the longest life possible. All of those are kernelized, simple views that betray and hide a vast network of ideas and thoughts about how to live life. And so I'm a huge fan of empathy and of Rawls' veil of ignorance and of situational ethics that are subject to revision, the notion that there is one objective, absolute moral standard that exists and is unchanging has never been demonstrated. It has only been asserted. And I don't see how you could demonstrate it.
Yeah.
Stuck.
The way I see it is selfishness is not the axiom, as he was saying. It's the way we reach our axioms with the veil of ignorance and everything, right? Like we start there and we arrive at the axiom from that point.
It's kind of because you don't know what's actually best for you, but you think you do. And that changes at different points. Like, I have an ex-wife. We're still good friends. At the time that we got married, I genuinely thought, this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. Everything about that felt like that was the right thing. And then situations changed. And it became not the case that we wanted to spend the rest of our lives together. We're still friends. We still appreciate each other. We still talk to each other. But what Christianity and those people advocating or pushing for some sort of objective, absolute moral standard are doing is they want everything so simple. And the world's more complex than that. And if you don't recognize that there are different situations, it's really nice to say, there is no circumstance under which it is ever right to hurt an innocent person. Okay. I think I agree. But I have no path to absolute truth or absolute certainty or any absolutes, which is why only a Sith speaks in absolutes. Anyway,
right. Yeah, agreed. So it doesn't look like we have another theist in the queue yet. Do we want to wait for another theist or do we want to take somebody else?
Well, I'm going to take John because John's been on hold for an hour on the very subject that we were just talking about. I don't know if John still has a question because we just did the whole argument for morality thing. How you doing, John?
Hi, hello. Yes, I am so glad you picked me right now. Yeah, Ryan actually did say several things that I wanted to talk about, so I'm not entirely sure where to go from here.
Well, maybe all you need to say is that you got what you wanted out of Ryan's call.
No, I don't think I did. This is exactly why I was calling, actually. Like I've seen debates about this exact topic before, and they all more or less go like this. Like
like Ryan, you mean? Like how Ryan's call
yeah, like
went?
Ryan brings up one or two things about why secular morality doesn't work in his view, and as soon as somebody asks him, and how does God solve this? Deflect, change the subject. Don't answer that question, whatever you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
and yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, you go first.
No. You're the one with the question. Maybe we can address.
Yeah, several of the things he said were things I actually wanted to talk about, like the country thing. Country A says everyone gets a house and a TV. Country B says everyone gets tortured. Now let's add God to the mix. Now both countries believe that God is the ultimate source of morality, and now country A believes that God says everyone gets a TV and a house, and country B says God says everyone gets tortured.
Yes. So first of all, I need to say thank you, John, because this is something I've said before and that I meant to say in the course with Ryan, but Ryan kept going around and back to the justifications and all that stuff. You're completely correct in that the way I've phrased it before is that there's no problem with secular morality that is ever been solved by appealing to a God, because, hey, this is why I asked him, do you have a way to show that there is a God with the correct moral view. Because if you don't, it's all just posturing. You're like, I'm doing this because it's what God wants. Well, first of all, you haven't demonstrated that God wants that God exists, or that it's right. You've just asserted all of those things. So you've muddied everything up. And you're completely right, John. And that is, if country A says, oh, this is what God wants from us, and country B says is what God wants from us, and they disagree, you have no path to resolution. None. And it's even worse, because if they're convinced that they have the absolute message from God, how do you resolve that massive ethical dilemma and conflict with anything other than conflict? We're going to have to kill you. This is why. The difference is, if you have a secular ethical thing that recognizes, hey, we don't know it all, but here's our goals. Now, everybody who can instead of pulling some bullshit avoidance, anybody who can agree, yes, I'd like a goal of a better world too. And I agree that a better world is one where people aren't starving and people have access to health. As soon as we start agreeing on those principles, then we can start working towards implementing those goals. And we don't have to say, oh, it's because God wanted it. If God wanted everybody to have health care, why doesn't everybody have health care? Why does anybody need health care? If God wanted people to be fucking healthy, why is it possible for people to not be healthy? It is absurd. It is absolutely bizarre, because they cannot solve any of the problems. And this is their biggest objection, John, is, okay, if country A says this and country B says this, we have no way of saying which one of us is right. And God doesn't solve that, because whether we're both appealing to God, or even if you're appealing to God and I'm not, you still have no justification by your own admission to show that you're right. So all you're doing is basically engaged in some sort of internal mental ethical masturbation, where you make yourself feel like you're right and that you have the power. And those other people, they're just corrupt and immoral and, inferior. It is, meanwhile, he's advocating for a system that's okay with slavery and whatever.
It's insane.
Right. Well, I would argue it makes it even worse, because if an entire population is convinced that God is in control of morality, then the person who is actually in control of morality is the person who can convince the most people that he's speaking for God. And that could be anyone. That could be Hitler. That could be Kenneth Copeland. That could be Trump.
Yeah.
And now what do we have? Now we have a mess on our hands. World War III.
It's complete absurdity. Yeah. It's absurdity at its face. And when at the end of the day, you can't use the Bible as a moral justification. You just can't, no matter how much they want to. We all get our morality from kind of the society around us, whether they like that fact or not. Right. And they bizarrely use it as like a bludgeon against atheists. I don't know. I don't understand what their goal even is in this.
It's really strange. I think it stems from a
bad potty training, I think.
A recognition that there's a problem they don't have a solution to, but they desperately wish they did, and they know that they need to, but they're not comfortable with the only available solution, which is the only available solution right now is that there is no absolute universal ethical foundation that anyone can identify. But there are ones that are demonstrably better than others. And so in a relative sense, not necessarily like this society says it, therefore it's right, but here's an attempt at a moral structure, and here's an attempt at a moral structure, and this one has already been shown to lead to a largely better world or have fewer problems. One of the things is that they talked about natural selection. I just did a video about this, about people trying to say, well, I did a video about the evolutionary argument against naturalism, but this notion that natural selection only selects for survivability and not for truth, but that's not correct. And by the way,
Truth is survivability.
it does. If I'm walking across the street, it matters whether or not there's a bus coming. And if I decide not to walk across the street because I think there's a bus coming and there's not, yes, I will survive. But if I decide to walk across the street when I don't think there's a bus coming and there is, I will probably not survive. And so natural selection doesn't select for necessarily certain things, although it can, as much as it selects against certain things. And so it filters towards a more accurate understanding of the world. This is the same that we're doing with morality. And it's a moving target.
How can you know truth if there is no God?
There you go. That's where they get. It's like, how can you be sure you're right? I'm not sure. But I am incredibly confident and warranted, and I can explain how it's warranted, that saying my view that it is wrong to kill an innocent 3-year-old kid because you want to demonstrably leads to a worse world for that kid, for me, and for the society that permits that sort of thing. Those are all demonstrable. It doesn't matter if they're absolute. It doesn't matter if they came from a God. That's what we've learned about how best to interact. And they would like to pretend that we haven't learned a thing and it's just all chaos. And if there's no God, why, it's a wild, wild west and anything goes. And I don't understand how people can spend so much time looking at this subject and getting a basic understanding of it to the point that the caller did, and then still try to pretend like without God, it's chaos. No, the option isn't
kind of
absolute or chaos. There's an entire spectrum between which we're recognizing. Anyway, sorry, John, continue.
Yeah, there's been thousands of years of moral philosophy. That's another thing that I wanted to talk about, because one part of the objective morality arguments has been that everybody knows that torturing babies for fun is immoral. And I talked to a Christian about this one time, and I brought up a specific example of somebody who has tortured babies for fun. And I don't think the person got my point, because they said, well, that guy is in prison now. And I guess that means that they don't count?
There is no logic behind it at the end of the day. It's a lot of, in a lot of ways, the same logic used to arrive to their conclusions regarding morality is the logic used to arrive to the conclusion that there is a God, right? There is no logic or evidence. At the end of the day, you can't logic your way into this because there is no evidence to base it off of, right? And it's just kind of like the same stale argument repackaged every single time for all of the ridiculous arguments.
Yeah.
You're not alone, John. It's not that you understand this. You don't understand why they're not understanding, I guess.
I wish I knew how to get them to understand this.
And I'm not convinced that Ryan was aware of some of the things that you mentioned, like Rawls, the veil of ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
He was just completely ignoring it, it seemed like. I'm not sure he knew what it was exactly.
I don't know, but I kind of got the impression that he did. But also, I briefly described it. And so it is describe or define the rules of the system that you're going to live in, not knowing who you'll be in that system.
Right.
And it's the simplest way that I ever heard it explained, and the way it instantly made sense. And yes, there is an exception, which I'll point out, is, hey, there's 6 of us at the table and there's one cake. and we would all like cake. So you
One
have
cuts the
one
cake,
person
everyone
cut
else
six
takes a piece.
pieces, and they pick last. And that encourages them to strive for fairness.
Right. It's that's the trick you do with kids when you have like a candy bar. One of them cuts the candy bar, the other picks the piece.
Yeah. It is that incredibly simple
Usually leads to
solution.
very slow cutting.
And not only that, for example, I'm a diabetic. I may not want or need or maybe shouldn't have an equal piece to Owen. So if you let me cut that, I now am stuck going, oh man, I only want just a little piece. So I'll cut just a little piece off. And now it's up to Owen to go, did Matt do that because he only wants a little piece? And he's trying to give me a big piece? Or is there something wrong with this and he doesn't want it? Maybe I should take, there has to be this presumption that we're operating on equal terms towards desired outcomes for both of us. Fairness. And it's entirely possible you could put two kids in a room, give them a candy bar and say, you're going to cut it and they're going to get first pick. So make sure you cut it with so that you're happy with whatever. But that only matters if both of them have an equal interest in wanting it. So that's the exception that you have to begin with. John, I thank you for the call. I hope we got some clarity, and I really appreciated you reminding me of the things I should have said and didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for having me. And Owen, I like your mug.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, I appreciate it. Just want to say, I've been learning German. I'm not very good at it, but pretty cool that you're from Germany. So thank you for calling.
Danke, dass ihr mich gehabt habt.
Say again?
He can't say again.
I was going to say Danke schön, but I'm not sure I'm using that correctly. I think it means thank you, beautiful. Actually, it means thank you very much, but yeah.
All right, here we go. Listen up. There's nobody on the line, and we have a little less than 19 minutes left in the show. We've already let the call screener go. We had a couple people on hold, and they dropped off, which means for the next 19 minutes, you either just get to listen to me and Owen talk about whatever the hell we feel like. And let's be honest, I'm going to just let Owen talk because I spent the last hour doing most of the talking. Or you can call in. No screener, no nothing. Are you a Phil bro that thinks you're going to get shut down in 10 seconds? Go ahead, call in. You might get shut down in 10 seconds, but if you're any good at any of this, you might get to talk for a little while. Were you on hold earlier and you just got tired of waiting, or you had to go to the bathroom or something, and now you get your chance? It's odd. Were you banned? Were you somebody that I said I don't ever want to talk to again, and you've just been waiting for me to have one of these open moments where I can be like, we're not going to screen, we're not going to do nothing, the phone's going to ring, and we're going to put you through immediately. And Arden's going to be really mad because it probably means that there'll be some cuts that need to be made at some point. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting for that phone to ring, how are you, Owen? And what are you working on?
Doing well. I've actually been I've been going back through some of the books that I read when I was writing my book on Germany and whether Hitler was an atheist. I've been reading them again, and I found I think I maybe read like 30 books or something. It was so many over the course of all that time I was researching. And I'm finding now that like in a lot of the books they talk about stuff that I didn't have the context to understand at the time, but now I do. And I'm like learning so much all over again. It's pretty fascinating stuff. Earlier I was talking about Sprukammer courts, for example. And were you here for that? I don't remember if I mentioned or if you were. I think your computer went out when I was talking about Sprukammer courts. Well, anyway, Sprukammer courts were like Nuremberg trials, except they were for like the common normal person. They were there were about 64 million people in Germany through World War II era. And at a certain point it became like unacceptable to not be a Nazi or not have Nazi party membership. So they set up a full court system to determine who was involved and what their involvement was with the party. And
They set up
you
a
know,
system to find it.
say again.
What did they set up to find out if people were involved with the Nazi party? This was after.
Yeah, it was after World War II, and it was called Spruikhammer courts.
Mm.
And they were kind of like town halls. There was a questionnaire of like 40 questions you had to fill out about your party membership and why you were involved and stuff like that. And I think we're going to end up seeing something like that before the end of this. That's my opinion. Anyway, looks like we got some calls here. Actually.
Yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's see how this goes. Auto Screen says Bonnie from Wisconsin about Jehovah's Witness Bible. Hey, Bonnie, you're on with Owen and Matt.
Hi guys. Yeah, I was a JW. I like Owen's channel because
thank
he
you.
was a JW.
Yes.
Okay. I was a JW for 50 years, and I left about 10 years ago. I'm not disfellowship, but and my family can talk to me. And I had a channel too. But anyway, I wanted to talk about the JW Bible, the 1984 reference Bible one. Are you familiar with that?
You mean are you talking about their translation, the New World Translation? I'm not familiar with like the 1984 version, but yeah, I know they're
the
Bible.
Big one. They actually have it online, and so what kind of woke me up about it was probably about 10 years ago. In the back, in the index, they have why they put true in the New World Translation in front of God, the true God. And they have that in brackets. And so one night I stayed up and I looked up every single one of those scriptures and why it said true in brackets. So then when you look at the New World Translation 1984, it's Elohim. Elohim. Every single time God is Elohim. In all of the churches, they try to say that Elohim is just for majesty, but actually, the is a article. The is an article in front of Elohim, so they put the in brackets, whereas every other Bible doesn't put the in there; they just put God. So
That's
if
interesting.
you put the in front of Elohim, it makes it plural. The God.
That's interesting. So they stuck the true God in place. I know
They
that
put in brackets. So then the other two editions that they have, they took the brackets out, but in the reference Bible, the is still in brackets. So when you go to the front of the Bible, they say when a word is in brackets, that means it was added. So every other Bible, they don't put the in front of Elohim or God. They just put God. So every other church, when they're reading their Bibles, they see the God. The New World Translation says the true God. So what woke me up is I'm wondering why does it say true? Why does it say the true God? I never could figure that out. And it's over 400 places. It's in the back of that Bible, where if you look it up and you go to Bible Hub and you read it in Hebrew, it's going to take you to the that reference. I forget what it's Strong's.
Quickest way to make an atheist to read the Bible, right?
Yeah. Anyway, to me, that's what woke me up, and because like Moses went up to the mountain of the gods, the ark of the gods. If you look up all of those and you read it for what it actually says, and that's the only Bible that I know of that puts the in front of Elohim or God. It's the only Bible I know. And Jehovah's Witnesses have no idea. I was in that religion for 50 years and I didn't know that.
That is absolutely nuts. I didn't know that either. I know that in the New World Translation, they actually use their own literature as citations toward the Bible translation things that they've done. They also use their own literature as citations in other literature. It's kind of absurd. They've changed certain words here or there. Like in the book of Revelation, it talks about the great beast, 7 heads, 10 horns. They changed the wording in that verse to directly imply that it's the United Nations. Even though that's not there, that's not in the original language. They completely fabricated that. They've done a lot of really wild stuff. Also, the word storos that they cite in there to justify the belief that Jesus died on a stake and not a cross. They changed that word and the definition and the little citation in there at that word as well. It was a cross that he died on, actually. If he was real at all, it would have been a cross. But anyway, I thought it was pretty interesting. Are you an atheist now? Do you believe that Jesus was real or no?
I have no belief in anything like that at all. It took me months before I wasn't afraid of Armageddon, though. It took studying the Bible, taking apart scripture by scripture, for me to realize that it's all fake. I mean, not all fake, but most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You probably heard it before. I'm not sure, but you know, Jehovah's Witnesses, they teach you about how ridiculous and fake Catholicism is, and how fake Baptists are and Methodists, and it just took me realizing that that one was fake as well for me to just give it all up completely.
Yeah.
How long have you been out? 10 years?
Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. You've been out for 10 years now?
Yes, 10 years of freedom. I was depressed the whole 50 years I was in it because it's like Armageddon's going to come anytime, and it scared the crap out of me. And for the 50 years I was in it, and it was studying the Bible really hard is what woke me up.
Good. Well, at least you got the freedom that you have, right? I left about 10 years ago, so I understand.
How wild.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Bye.
We got one more call I'm going to try to get to here. As it's so weird to me, the very subtleties about the L and all this. Can you imagine? And this is how it feels to me, even though I'm a former believer. I wasn't a JW, but the nitpicking about ancient languages and how we're going to use it. I can't imagine worrying about whether or not it should be James T. Kirk or James R. Kirk.
Yeah.
And then editing every episode to the preferred one based on he gives it more gravitas, or, maybe our names were not popular, or maybe it was too close to a Nazi name or something, that to me is the kind of, where's the actual evidence that any of this shit is true? Let's worry about what we call it afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Derek's calling, and pre-screening, Derek says atheists seem to be losing. Hey, Derek, how are you?
All right. So I'm going to be real.
Sorry?
You're inaudible, Derek. We can't understand a word you're saying.
We can't make out what you're saying.
Thank you.
I can't hear. Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, he left. All right. Derek was saying that atheists seem to be losing. I don't know what he's pointing to for that. We do know that.
Or sorry, I was just gonna say he had called in previously, and it was basically like he's an atheist, and he felt like atheists were winning, but now things are kind of backsliding. So that was kind of where that was coming from. It was like, why is it backsliding?
Yeah. So first of all, in November, Gallup released its latest poll information on religiosity, and it is the biggest 10-year decline in the importance of religion to daily life in history. This is, I mean, you can just go look at the statistics, but in the US, it went from about 65% of the folks said that who said religion is an important part of their daily life in 2007 to 49% in 2025. That is like a 16-point drop. And that is 17-point drop. Went from 66% in 2015, to 49% today. It is among the largest drops Gallup has ever recorded. Now, that has nothing to do with whether or not atheists are winning. And quite frankly, as I've said many times, I'm not here to make atheists win. I don't give a shit if atheists win. I care more about skepticism and humanism. And if religions can demonstrate they're true, I'll convert. And if they can't, I'm going to keep exposing them. But it is not, if the notion is that secularism seems like it's losing, I would say it is skepticism and rationality that are losing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it feels like we're losing on a lot of things right now, but actually our positions are very popular. Like you said, Gallup recorded a massive drop in religious, value to life or whatever. But Christian nationalists control the government at the moment. So it feels like we're losing in the strictest sense of the term because Christian nationalists control the government. But our ideas are not losing in the marketplace of ideas, quote unquote.
Yeah,
right?
it reminds me, it's like I was saying earlier that people hated Obamacare, but they love the Affordable Care Act, even the same thing. It is, I wonder, we're so divided, and we're at a point, this has been frustrating this week because you can show people the exact same footage and some people will say X is a bad shoot and some people say X is a good shoot. But when I get down to brass tacks, when I start asking them whether it was a bad shoot or a good shoot, for example, what they come back with is either an absolute denial of what you can see with your own eyes, or an excuse that even though what you see with your own eyes is this, there's other things going on, like you were ordered by a law enforcement officer and therefore you need to follow those instructions, as if being ordered by a law, it's against the policies to shoot in that circumstance. There's no justification for it. But it's like, oh, this is about them. If they weren't out there harassing ICE, no. ICE are the harassers. But in any case, what were they doing that was illegal? This is like blowing up the Venezuelan drug boats. Even if they were drug dealers, that's not punishable by death, and you don't get to kill them without the due process. And so, this individual who murdered this woman, a good chunk of the country is never going to see it that way. And you can point out all day long, look, there's the video. This. They'll make up fake videos. But even without making up fake videos, there is a presumption that law enforcement is right and law enforcement is to be obeyed. And that if things go sour, the benefit of the doubt goes with law enforcement. I saw somebody today post that they were shocked to see that evidently people can't be afraid for their life and react in a way to protect themselves. And yet the law enforcement officer supposedly can be fearful of his life and act in a way to protect himself that couldn't possibly protect himself. There's nothing that's going to stop that, what he supposedly perceived was happening, and results in another person dying. It's shocking to me that we agree on, like, if we label the goal, we want a better world, we don't necessarily agree on what better means, and we don't necessarily agree on what the facts are, even when we spell them out. And it's only going to get worse. It's only going to become more difficult as AI generated images start taking over. I've corrected, I don't know, half a dozen. This is a bullshit image, and ones that, I think people should have instantly spotted.
I don't know if you saw Dark Matter 2525's post, but they posted, some Trump supporters posted a screenshot of Goods, the girl who was shot, Goods, like rap sheet, but it was fake. She was 37. It had her birthday as 1980. They said it was 2025, but it was a 2023 case number. The whole thing was fake. Yeah. We live in an alternate reality now where facts mean nothing to anybody, apparently. It's insane.
And it's propaganda. The Fox News host was basically saying, she had pronouns in her bio and a child from a previous marriage and her wife. They stress all the things that are completely fucking irrelevant, but paint a narrative where their viewers don't give a shit if people die. That dispassionate lack of empathy, just callousness. Well, that's evidently modern Christianity in a nutshell. And it starts by excusing slavery and pretending that you have absolute morals. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Stay tuned right now for Calling It Now. And after that, the Sunday Show After Dark and all the other shows here on the network. You need to like, subscribe. You can go to linemerch.com and patreon.com/calltheline to find ways to support what we do here. And please spread the word. If you can do nothing else, hit the like button. It does, in fact, help. And let people know when we're on and that we're looking for them to call in and actually do a good job of defending, so I don't have to listen to another Philo bro ramble on about which premise do you reject? Which premise do you reject? Not my job. Prove it.